Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Men of Revolution, and we have got to get into the cooning, the buffooning, and the shoe shining that's taking place for Kamala Harris. Before we do, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button, like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know Core Figure is live. We're going to deal with the buck dancers and the shoe shiners, the Greek freaks who have violated our sister, legendary sister, over her just saying what a lot of us are saying and having an opinion.
YouTube, chicks. Get ready. You know what to do, chicks.
Listen, Chick Smooth. Hey, Chick Smooth. Appreciate all the coverage that you've been doing.
Election day coming up in about 43 days. Things are getting pretty tense right now. Obviously, you have Trump on the Republican side, Kamala Harris for the Democrats. Depending on which narrative you decide to spew, which political party you decide to align yourself with, you just might find yourself in some hot water. Chingy was actually bullied out of performing at a Republican event. If you guys missed that story, please make sure you go follow my Instagram page at Chick Smooth. Chingy was actually booked to perform at this RNC event. The hip-hop community started calling him out, basically bullying him, and Chingy ended up dropping out of the event. Somebody actually called him out in the comments saying, "Damn, you a Trump supporter now?" Chingy says, "No. Correction, I'm a Chingy supporter. My job is performing, not politics." Now, Chingy, come on, dog. You could just tell us, yo, they gave me a large amount of money right there, and I couldn't turn it down. Now, over the weekend, Janet Jackson actually spoke on Kamala Harris. When she was asked about America possibly being on the verge of voting in its first black female president, Kamala Harris, Janet Jackson said, "Well, you know what they supposedly said, right? She's not black. That's what I heard. She's Indian. Her father's white. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told they discovered her father was white." Now, Kamala Harris's race and family background has been a huge talking point for Donald Trump and all the Republicans.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say, no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear.
Now, D.L. Hughley was not having it. He said Janet Jackson's interview sounded like a Trump rally. For your information, it's a little ironic to question whether someone is Black while you're breathing through the nose of a white woman.
Nah. What made it okay for D.L. Hughley to disrespect this Black lady? If he said, what happened to the protect the Black women thing? Like a trained attack dog, he immediately went after this Black woman for saying, she didn't say nothing. She said, "Hey, I'm hearing." She's not Black. She just said, "I'm hearing." See, they don't want any of our people raising their voice to, this is what's really going on around the round table in our community. Here go D.L. Hughley. This is disgusting. And if you go to the comment sections, so many Black people are pissed that he did this. And he don't care, but he done proven all that protect the Black woman. That don't mean nothing, no deal. But you mean protect the Democrats and their talking points. Now he goes out to attack what Janet Jackson looks like. Janet didn't attack what Kamala looked like. She said, "I heard." Well, if Kamala come out and say, "Well, I heard Janet Jackson had an operation or whatever," hey, that's on her. That's not on D.L. Hughley to say, though.
God damn. Kamala Harris looks the way she does because she has a mom from India and a dad from Jamaica. Janet Jackson looks the way she does because she has a plastic surgeon. Oh my gosh. All I know is Kamala looks like she did when she was in Oakland, but Janet don't look like she did when she was Penny. What the hell was in that iron? Now, after getting so much backlash from the fans, Janet and her team actually put out the
the backlash from the fans, my ass. No, from Boule and Greek Freak gave her backlash, but no, that's fucked up because Janet had every right. Other people are speaking their opinions. Why can't Janet Jackson, who is very popular amongst black people, have an opinion? And the Democrats, they do not mind attacking black people. You see that, but they got to make sure they attack dogs do it. The boule, make sure the boule do it.
Y'all got to get in here and check this out. I love you, Janet Jackson, but I'm going to need you to do a little bit of research instead of talking about what you heard in interviews. In a recent sit-down interview, legendary singer Janet Jackson did with The Guardian, she speaks on hearing that Kamala Harris is not black. She was quoted saying, "She's not black. That's what I heard. She's Indian. Her father is YT." Now, I'm sure you guys have heard this story by now because it's been everywhere, but with a simple Google search, Janet Jackson could have pulled up a photo of Kamala Harris's father, and this would have ended this entire situation.
Respectfully, the black community loves you, but
see, when you pull up that picture, you seeing a Indian Irish guy that lives in Jamaica. What are you talking about?
At least she wants to be black. Your brother did not. I didn't want to go to the grave, but I had to go to the grave. Your brother did not. At least she wants to be black. Your brother did.
So I'm in Chicago, and it occurs to me I need to teach a quick civics for celebrities course. So here are 5 things to know for today's lesson. Number 1, Kamala Harris is black. She has a black Jamaican father. She grew up in Oakland, California. She attended Howard University, a historically black college. And most importantly, she says
she did not grow up in Oakland, California. She grew up in Canada, but they run these lies on a lot of black people. That's why we're fighting back. But it's disgusting they attack Janet Jackson. That's a black woman. I thought we protected. I thought the black men was going to line up to protect black women. Let's see what Janet Jackson parents look like, and then let's see what Kamala parents look like. And you tell me, this is disgusting.
Black.
Oh my God, Janet Jackson, not you, not you. Hey,
Boy, they showing us their true colors, man. They don't give a damn about protecting no black people.
Janet Jackson is in the latest in an article today released by The Guardian where she calls Kamala Harris's daddy white. Girl!
She did not say that. She said that's what she heard. She heard, and that's what they get for sticking these. That's what they get for asking all these people their political opinion. Now, when they find out they got one, they want to attack her. What she told? She said, "I heard that his daddy was white," which he is. Which he is. It's okay for him to get some diversity pay and act like that he's black, but he's Indian Irish guy living in Jamaica. People so dumb they think Jamaica mean black, which is a damn lie.
Kamala Harris's daddy is a blood clot Jamaican from Portmore, Jamaica. Put your lighters up. That full-blown Jamaican girl. What are you doing? You need to be worried about them 3 white kids. Your brother, who is currently at the crossroads, has 3 kids from the utmost top of the mountain of Caucasus. Okay? You're blonde, white.
Boy. The black liberals are upset. They are mad today, okay? And we got to talk about why. Because this controversy surrounding Kamala Harris's alleged black heritage just will not go away. It's not going away. Okay, and the reason why it's not going away is because I'm telling you, normal, everyday black people do not believe that Kamala Harris is black. The only black folks that believe that Kamala Harris is black, and I'm saying believe in quotes because I don't think they actually believe it. They're just saying it because this is what they want to be true, right? Although they don't have evidence or proof to really back up their claims. But anyways, the only people that really believe this are the black liberal elite, right? And they get really upset when people question Kamala Harris's identity. And when you have somebody with the status and fame of Janet Jackson coming out and saying that, hey, I heard she's not black, right? I didn't know Kamala was black. That's going to piss off a lot of people. You know, the black bourgeoisie, they're going to be melting down over this for at least a week, right? For the next week, okay? They're going to be losing their mind until they bully Janet Jackson into an apology, right? That's what they're going to try to do, okay? Because you see this headline here from NBC. Janet Jackson tells interviewers she heard Kamala Harris is not black, echoing election disinformation. Yeah, so apparently it is disinformation to say, well, I heard that Kamala Harris is not black, right? again, it's just fascinating. It really is.
She heard.
It's fascinating where we're at right now. So I'm gonna read this quote here from the article, the original article. It's The Guardian, and this was brought up because of the interviewer basically asking Janet Jackson about Kamala Harris becoming the first Black female president. And
Janet Jackson ain't bringing it up. They don't give a damn about no Kamala. But how do you feel about the first Black? Since they want to clout chase her followers, and she decided to say something that was on her heart, and they pissed off. Why did you ask her a question if you didn't want her answer?
This is what Janet Jackson's response was.
Now,
quote, well, you know what they supposedly said. She asked me, quote, she's not Black. That's what I heard, that she's Indian. She looks at me expectantly, perhaps assuming that I have Indian heritage. Quote, well, she's both, I offer. Quote, her father's white. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. She coughs. I was told that they discovered her father was white. I mean, according to Judge Joe Brown, her father is of Irish descent, right?
He's an Irish Indian living in Jamaica.
Indian descent. Now, again, Donald Harris could just come out and, explain to the world that, hey, I'm Black, right? I have African ancestry or whatever, right? This is what he could come out and say, but he doesn't, right? He won't do it. Again, I wonder why. Why won't this man just come out and say, listen, here's my African ancestry. Kamala is Black. Because I think that this actually really is an important matter. Why do I say that? Well,
African ancestry is slave owning ancestry. That's why he ain't gonna come out, because his ancestors were slave owners. It'll bust the whole diversity BS he running over there in Jamaica.
It's important because the history books are going to say that
sucking up promotions from real Black people in Jamaica, lying, hustling like Kamala. See, he ran this scam in Jamaica, but he didn't try to be the prime minister or nothing.
Kamala Harris was the first Black female president, and that may not actually be accurate, right? And if that happens, it's stuff like that makes me really question history, right? I mean, I really question, like, did things happen the way that the history books claim? Because I am living in 2024 and I am watching history be written or rewritten in real time, right? We've seen this happen throughout this election cycle, and it's stuff like this that really makes me question a whole lot of history. I'm floored at this point. It's well known that Harris's father is a Jamaican economist, a Stanford professor who split from her Indian mother when she was 5. Now, again, that's the thing that really gets me about these people. Every time they talk about Kamala's father, they say that he's Jamaican. They don't say that he's Black. Jamaican is a nationality. So saying that he's Jamaican is not proof that she's Black, because not all Jamaicans are Black. But again, I don't know why is it that this is never something that is understood by people who present themselves as intelligent people, right? Quote, my mother understood very well that she was raising 2 Black daughters. Harris wrote in her book, The Truths We Hold. The people who are most vocal and question the facts of Harris's identity tend to be hardcore QAnon adjacent, Trump-loving conspiracy theorists. No, that's actually not true. The people who are questioning her heritage the most are Black people like Janet Jackson, because most Black people in this country do not think that Kamala Harris is Black. I don't think Jackson falls into that camp, but I do wonder what the algorithms are serving her. It's not the algorithms. It's the fact that as a Black person, Black people can recognize people who are Black, right? Like, I mean, this is not hard, okay? This is not a hard concept. But again, I love when these liberals who are not Black try to tell Black people who is Black and who is not Black. Again, it's just hilarious. I start again. Harris has dual heritage, I say, and given this moment, does Jackson think America is ready for her? If we agree she's Black, or okay, a woman of color. Quote, I don't know, Jackson stage whispers. Honestly, I don't want to answer that because I really truthfully don't know. I think either way it goes is going to be mayhem. Wow. So basically, this woman is trying to get a full-throated endorsement out of Janet Jackson for Kamala Harris, right? And Janet Jackson is like, well, shoot. Honestly, I don't want to say either way. Wow. She doesn't think there will be a peaceful transition of power. Quote, I think there might be mayhem. She falters. Either way it goes, but we'll have to see. Yeah. So the Kamala Harris supporters, right? The woke revolutionaries, the black liberals, you can imagine they were very upset about these comments from Janet Jackson. Take a look.
She's trying to destroy her legacy. Janet Jackson recently sparked some controversy by claiming that Harris is not black. She said that the Democratic 2024 presidential nominee has a white father. And when asked her thoughts about the United States potentially having its first female black president, she said, well, she's not black. I heard that she's Indian. When her brother passed away, he was a complete full-blown white lady. And we still loved and adored him. What does this have to do with anything? Why is it so hard to understand the facts that she is a biracial woman? First of all, her father was not white. He was a black Jamaican economics professor. And her mother was of Indian descent. Janet should have sat this one out.
All right, let's talk about this Janet Jackson quote. Before I start, I said this when the nomination happened, that regardless if you're voting for Kamala or not, regardless if you like her or not, any of the racism that was going to be hurled her way over the next 3+ months, it was going to be thrown back at everyday Black people. As we have seen in the 2 months since that nomination switch, it was a lot. So for Janet Jackson to tote the Sergeant Noir question of Kamala's blackness that Trump was spewing right before the debate, it is disappointing. It also got people bringing up a whole bunch of stuff when it regards to her brother Randy and Joe Jackson, and if he actually liked Black people or didn't like Black people who were too Black. That's a whole nother video. The story has gotten so big that the white trades are now picking it up. Here is the full article from The Guardian. You can pause to read. Listen, Damina Joe, you're going to have to come on here and make a video of you whispering an apology, because this is not good. This is not good. Regardless of how people feel about her, this is not good, especially since we just saw you at Essence Fest.
Janet Jackson. So Janet Jackson, in a new interview with The Guardian, claims that Kamala Harris is not Black. So for some reason, very much like when Barack Obama was running, they were trying to say that he wasn't an American citizen because he was born in Hawaii. They're trying to discredit Kamala Harris not being Black. So Janet Jackson, in a new interview with The Guardian, said this. Well, you know what they supposedly said? She's not Black.
No,
that's what I heard. That she's Indian, her father's white. That's what I was told. She then continues. She says, I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered her father was white. Kamala Harris's father is a Jamaican economist. He was a Stanford professor who split from Kamala's Indian mother when she was 5. Kamala said this in her book. She says, my mother understood very well that she was raising 2 Black daughters. She also went to historically Black college. She's Black.
Now, Miss Jackson, I was getting ready to get real nasty on your ass, but instead I decided to delete and retract the tweet because, you know what, I was coming from a place of anger, not understanding, because I do understand that you just lost your brother and you're possibly still grieving. But I'm just let you know right now, you are too grown to be going off of what the internet or what you done heard. You need to start doing research. And for you not to understand or know who Vice President Kamala Harris is or not know anything about her background is very telling. You are about to be 60 years old, sis, and you're telling me you do not know who is running for the highest office in the land. But as far as Kamala Harris' blackness go, I want you to look at your biracial children and you tell me if they're Black. Did you know that 2 things can exist at the same time? You can be Black and brown simultaneously. Now, everybody want to blame somebody else or blame you for living in a bubble, but baby, the only person I can blame is you. Again, you are too grown to not know this information. Please, Janet, no more running with rumors. Remember, you said you didn't like rumors either. Remember when they said you had a secret baby that you hid away from the world? Wasn't that hurtful? It's just as hurtful as spreading rumors about Kamala Harris's blackness and erasing it. Kamala Harris's father is a whole Black Jamaican man.
Yeah, so you see that you're that. Now, I find this conversation to be hilarious for multiple reasons, okay? Because when you explain it, you probably lose it. And there's a whole lot of explaining going on from the Kamala Harris supporters that are upset with this. Now, here's the issue. The issue is that none of these people have proof or evidence that Kamala Harris is black. That's the funny part. When you hear these people prove that Kamala Harris is black, they say things like, well, she went to Howard University. Oh, she joined a black sorority. She identifies as black, right? These are all things that a white person can do. But none of this stuff is proof that she's actually a black American in the sense of how we typically identify black Americans. Like, for example, she's not Shannon Sharp black, right? She's not Michael Jordan black, okay? She is not black in the way that, again, most people recognize what black is, okay? Which is basically having ancestry, okay, that dates back multiple generations to slavery, okay, in this country, right? That is typically how we identify black Americans. That is how we distinguish black Americans, okay, and who have ancestry dating back multiple generations from Africans, right? Africans that come over here, and they are distinctly different, specifically when it comes to culture, right, from black Americans, right? I'm talking about how we typically use these terms, right? So we know for a fact that Kamala Harris doesn't have that. Now, I guess the argument here is that, well, Kamala Harris has one drop of black blood, therefore she's black, which again is white supremacist ideology, by the way. But even Donald Harris himself on Kamala Harris's birth certificate, when asked specifically your color or your race, this man said Jamaican. So he doesn't even identify as black. And just because he looks black doesn't mean that he's actually black, which is the only evidence that these people have. Well, he looks black, therefore we think he's black. And it's like, well, there are a lot of East Indian people that look black, right? They look African, okay? They look like they could be of African descent, but they're actually Asian, right? They're from, India in regards to their recent ancestry, right? Again, we can get deeper into the anthropological kind of, distinctions between race and stuff like that, but that's too deep and too technical of a conversation for this, right? The point is this: are we at the point now where we're now saying that you can be transracial? Is that what it is? Because if that's the route that these people want to go down, then every white person in the hood can basically say, yeah, I'm black, right? And hey, I got some African ancestry way, way, way down the line, okay? Not anything recent, but way down the line. And I was raised in the hood, so I'm black, right? So I need to get all the special rights and privileges associated with being a black person, right? That is where these people are going, right? With Kamala Harris. That's how far they're reaching. They're reaching that far that I could probably justify a lot of white people, okay, that live around black people. Hey, I guess you're black, right? If Kamala Harris is black, you're black too, right? And also any Indian people as well too, okay? Because that also applies to racial minorities that look black, right? If you look like you could be black, okay, you claim to be black, therefore you are black. I'm just saying that's where we're going here. Because the only argument these people have is that, well, she looks like she might have some African ancestry. And she went to Howard University. She joined a sorority. She cooks collard greens in a bathtub, and she dated a black man named Willie. Therefore, she's black. Well,
What's up with the squad? Back with another video. I seen the titles going out. Make sure you have to like, put that scar on for me, please. Y'all see it. Janet Jackson is being said. This from Dom _LUCRE on, I don't want to mess up people's names. That's why I always spell it. So if I spell it, I don't want to mess up nobody's names. Just follow along. Y'all see it on there. Janet Jackson is being slammed as irrelevant and a leech after questioning Kamala Harris' race, saying she's not black. Jackson family have been allies with Trump's for decades. Now, my thing with this whole thing is, soon somebody like, let's say, literally Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson's sister, oh yeah, we say something about, she's not black. Speaking the truth on stuff, now it becomes a problem, all because she's not a fan of Kamala. My thing is, this whole week, everybody that supports Kamala Taylor Swift has, J-Lo, Chris Rock, Billie Eilish. They all hype. Now Janet Jackson speaking the truth on something. Now y'all ready to bash her? Come on, bro. Ready to bash her. Then when she says this is by Lan Lu. Janet heard right. Kamala is not black. Her words. Let's check them out.
I'll just let Kamala tell you, straight from her own mouth. And to Indian Americans all across the United States, I want to wish you a happy Indian Independence Day. On August 15th, 1947, men and women all over India rejoiced in the declaration of the independence of the country of India. Today, on August 15th, 2020, I stand before you as the first candidate for Vice President of the United States of South Asian descent. So I hope you celebrate today, and then tomorrow, I hope you join me in getting to work.
So y'all heard it. Okay, so let's check this out. Says the Jackson family have been allies with Trump for decades. Michael Jackson's sister, Janet Jackson, just came out against Kamala Harris for claiming she's black. She's not black. That's what I heard, that she's Indian. Kamala definitely doesn't want you, obviously, share this. And y'all see it right here. This is Michael Jackson, Donald Trump, together. And by all means, people will say all the time, see them walking together. People will mention and say, oh, people can change. People can think this. People can think that. I feel like a lot of people that know Donald Trump knows Donald Trump. And what people fail to realize, all the old videos that I've watched, everything that I've seen, Donald Trump is the only one that hasn't changed. He's been the same person. I'm being completely honest. I'm obviously I'm gonna have bad comments, people talking crazy to me. I don't even care. People talk crazy to me all the time because I support them and I'm black. They don't really bother me. I tell y'all, bro, I don't care about none of that, bro. I literally had Trump pass in my office. I got my Trump, I got everything, bro. I don't care about none of that, bro. They can say what they want, do whatever they gotta do. But I'm gonna tell y'all right now, he was the only one that didn't train. He was on Oprah. Oprah loved him, bro. Joy Behar loved him. Bro, I can go to a whole list of people who actually love Trump. He was the only one that didn't fold. He's the only one that didn't change. And I'm going to tell y'all right now. Just like they saying, the Jackson family have been allies with the Trumps for decades. They know who Trump is. It's real. This is from Kim on X. I stand with Janet Jackson. She was right that Kamala is not black. And the fact, this is about a black woman saying this, by the way, y'all. And I know I ain't with all the color and this, that, and that, but this just goes to show you that a lot of more black people, are starting to, wake up and see what's really real. But says right that Kamala is not black. The fake black storyline for convenience of this election is getting old. Can't really say that word on my channel. But literally saying Democratic Party that want to be mad that she is not riding the Kamala wave, which y'all see it. You feel me? Y'all definitely do. And I think that's honestly what it is. I feel like when she said that, you obviously have a lot of people. And what makes my thing is, just because she said that, everybody want to bash her and talk crazy about Janet Jackson. But what makes them think that she's definitely going to like Kamala when their supporters and people talking crazy? That just goes to show you, why are y'all doing all of this? Because she's speaking the truth. She's literally speaking the truth. And Kamala supporters are giving a horrible reaction. A horrible reaction. It's like every time, this is, and it sucks. They had all these people, oh yeah, we don't care. J-Lo, Chris Rock. I done see so many times. Oh, we don't care. It's fine. That's completely fine. But then when you had Janet Jackson saying this, everybody is bashing her. This is everywhere now. Says this ain't all. Says Jackson went on to express her concern that no matter who wins the election, the result will be mayhem. And honestly, I'm not even going to cap. She said, she explained, honestly, I don't want to answer that because I really, truthfully don't know. I think either way is going to be mayhem. And me personally, I'm not even going to lie to y'all. how I look at things is that it could be because of the situation that we're in. You know, we have hate, it's different migrants, you know, and obviously if you have something so simple of a Democrat saying this about Kamala and bashing her online, obviously that could be mayhem, you know, if Trump wins. Kamala, I feel like it's going to be mayhem on their part. I feel like it's going to be mayhem on that part because of where we are now and where she can take it. Even worse. I'm not even going to go as far and say, oh, Trump supporters is going to do this and do that. I mean, look, Joe Biden, I mean, it's literally, I feel like it's mayhem on their part. Things can get worse because of the situation that we are in right now, and it's doing nothing but getting worse, if y'all want to be real. This is Janet Jackson liking, looks like somebody named Randy Jackson and his RFK Jr. Then you have, obviously, and this is what makes me mad about things right now, is because just because this is the same thing that happened with Brittany Mahomes. I feel like just liking a picture, it's not really telling you. So I can't really go off of that. But seeing everything put together of what she's saying, that, you know, she's not black. Yes, her liking a picture. She, you know, following Donald Trump, or they obviously been, you know, allies with Trump family for a while. You obviously see that. But when people be putting like stuff like all because they like the picture and stuff like that, I feel like that's a little bit, you know what I mean? And this guy right here, I don't know his name, but he always pops up on X. Y'all probably can't see him.
Because you know what? I was coming from
this dude, he cusses a lot, so I ain't even gonna put him on my channel. He popped up, and that's the only reason I am. But he always got something to say. He absolutely loves Kamala a lot, and I don't know why, but stuff gotta stop, bro. Like, it ain't.
And the black women in his church about the Democrat Party's agenda and going against God's will. Definitely got to touch on that. Then we're going to talk about how Roland Martin ran into Miss Kayla, the black woman, the Chick-fil-A woman. Most people know her as that, who ran into Donald Trump. Yeah. And let's just say that Roland Martin got confronted. Okay. I'll just be nice about it. Okay. Then on top of that, I'm going to show y'all this clip where people just think that black Trump supporters are just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And we tired of y'all saying that we support them for the check.
Especially speaking to my black sisters tonight, because y'all got a big decision. And here you are having to make a decision between your Christian values or the symbolism of having somebody in the presidency that looks like me. It's going to be rough for black women. But here's where you're getting ready to have your loyalty test. If a party is not doing the will of God, will you go along with it? That's the question you got to ask. If a party is not tuned into doing the will of God, will you vote against God? What y'all don't understand, when you go to the polls, you either voting for God or against him. Because if you vote against his agenda, and when they get in office and that agenda comes, you got to bear some responsibility. Who is on the Lord's side? Let him come. Because the other side is full of paganism. The beliefs, the position, the agenda are all pagan. That means if you put your black sister in office, she's bringing paganism into government. You will be held responsible on the day we stand before God, just because you want to rock with somebody that may not have but a drop of black blood in them. People make their decisions off of stupid stuff. And I'm talking about Christians that ain't even thinking, because I want to rock with my folk. I can't be against my folk. See, that's what I'm talking about, that idolatry right there. The God of blackness, and it's an idol. And God sees that in the heart. And you got to stand before him. Coming soon, because people have asked me, why is it you as a black preacher, encouraging us to vote for Trump? I ain't told you had to go vote for Trump. I'm giving you my values and my views. I give you that. It's up to you to accept them or not. Let me show you this. This is one of the things that you will see her where she was dancing at, and she's really trying to show that she's black. And that's her in the pink pants, of course. And all that. They got to do everything to show black people. We know y'all like the boogie. Y'all got to dance. Look at that. I'm pointing. Hey, I'm over here getting with it too. But you're going to make me laugh. Shut up, Crystal. And so they do all that to pander. And the whole thing is connect with black people. It really shows what they think about us. And I'm talking about white liberals behind the scene. That's what they think about us. Booty shaking and twerking. That's all black folk like. Ain't said nothing about no issues. As if we can't think for ourselves, that we don't understand the issues. Didn't mention one issue. And then the only other rhetoric they got is hate Trump. Tell us what you gonna do for us when you get in office. They can't, because all of the issues are contrary to freedom, and they are contrary to what's best for our values and what's best for our families and best for our way of life. Kamala is a socialist. She wants the government to do everything for people without them working. Why? If we give people everything from the government, we get to control them.
And I'd have to agree with this pastor, man. If you are a Christian and you are someone whom is spiritual and believe in God, it's a lot of that's going on with the Democratic Party today. System of that. It's a direct contradiction. Somebody wrote, if Christians would vote the Bible, Trump would get 120 million votes. They need to register first. Somebody said, I can't vote Democrat ever. Have you ever read the history of the Democratic Party? It reads like a nonstop terror attack against against American people, not African American people. It said American people. A Christian and a Democrat have two completely different perceptions of reality. Democrats lean more towards atheism, secularism, Darwinism, Marxism, and eugenics. As Christians, we believe in God. Amen for that. Now, I don't know how I feel to mention that they're trying to cancel Janet Jackson for not endorsing Kamala Harris, but we're going to dive into that a little bit later. Right now, a few hours ago, Roland Martin got ran up on by Miss Kayla Baby on Twitter today. Had a lot to say. You'll see what happens when a woman try to talk to him versus a man. Yeah, the energy is different.
So it's all right. I will reach out to your producer. I will reach out to your producer. I'm gonna tell you. Clear that
Kayla,
bullshit.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Kayla. If you bring that bullshit to my show,
all you're saying is bullshit, and I promise it won't end well for you. But it's all good. I would hate for you to be exposed on your own platform, but I will. For you. I will be ready for you. And I hope you have more national examples and more results. I want to hear more about what you're doing in regards to complaining about what somebody else is doing. Don't girl bye if you can't get results. Results matter. You have none. But thank you, Roland Martin. Thank you, Roland Martin. And thank you all for everywhere else. I walked up to you, did I not? Did I not walk up to you and introduce myself? All right, sir.
But you're loud and wrong.
You know you're loud.
No, you're loud and wrong.
You have a following of people who love you. So
baby, I'm not worried about them.
You are.
You just loud and wrong.
I don't have to lie. That's you. And you get paid to do that.
First of all,
but like I said, we'll talk. I'll call you. I have other stuff to do. I have other stuff to do, but we'll talk. Remember, I walked up to him while he's talking about running. And I also said that I'm welcome to come sit with him on his show.
Wow. All I gather is he don't care what his following thinks. He don't care about them, which is sort of like, you you can argue that he was in the heat of the moment, wasn't completely aware, but nah, man, that goes to show you the sheeple right there. These are the people that are endorsing Kamala Harris and spewing the propaganda and continuously making you feel like Donald Trump is the threat to democracy when it's really them. Somebody said, listen to his mannerisms, girl, bye, girl, baby. This dude said, girl, bye. Come on, dog. Somebody said Roland got exposed. This is hilarious. Shout out to the sister. We got your back, baby. He had no smoke for you. Yeah, he has a lot of energy. Not only is the Trump. Okay. Yeah, I don't think this is the right energy that you want to give a woman, man, just as a man. I'm not saying that you can't speak your mind or nothing like that. I'm in no way, shape, or form am I saying that, but I don't know how it all transpired. I don't know, what was said before the live went live. So there's that too. I'll just leave that at that for now. But moving on. Why do people... Matter of fact, I think the first thing that I'm going to show y'all is Kamala Harris just completely just trying to be black too much, man. I know y'all like, how's she trying to be black? I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious the way that she interacted at the national visit, Black Journalist Convention. Yeah. Campaign she tried to use it as a campaign event too. It says, unbelievable. The National Association of Black Journalists asks her hard-hitting questions like, why is joy so important to your campaign? And this is her response.
Why is joy important to you to insert into this election? And what do you make of Republicans using that as a way to suggest that you're not a serious candidate?
Well, sometimes I think, and I'll say to whoever the young people are who are watching this, there are sometimes when your adversaries will try and turn your strength into a weakness. Don't you let them. Don't you let them. I find joy in the American people. I find joy and optimism.
That definitely didn't feel like journalists campaign. I don't really know. It felt mostly like a campaign. That definitely didn't feel like journalists campaign. I don't really know. It felt mostly like a campaign event when I watched that. Honestly, the looks on their faces just says it all. And of course, like, we seen Donald Trump go up there in that same event. He was criticized for pulling up, and Kamala only decided to pull up after the fact to use it as a political campaign event. She's been utilizing celebrities and things like that to kind of fluff everything. But come on, man, we not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and we don't owe the Democratic Party anything, at all. Maybe, what I'm saying, a little tussle now and again. But somebody said, I like seeing black women standing on business against the Indian fraud.
Some of y'all would vote for the devil himself if the devil ran for president as a Democrat. And let me tell you, this is especially for all you black people who are out there telling me that I need to just be quiet. I shouldn't ask questions of Kamala Harris. I should support her just because she's black. I'm hating on her. No, I am not. She is a political candidate running for the highest office in the land. As a voter, as an American citizen, I have every right to demand answers of her. I have the right to examine her policy positions, to demand to know her policy positions before I just blindly give her my vote. And I want you all to know, some of you all have such low standards that all a person has to do is come out and run as a Democrat, especially for the black voters. All a person has to do is come out and run as a Democrat, say all these nice things, what they're planning on doing, paint a pretty picture, demonize the other side, and you automatically give them your vote without checking into those people, without seeing what their policy positions are, without trying to understand their policy positions. To do your research on these political candidates, because these people are going to be sitting in the highest office in the land, making decisions that's going to affect your life, that's going to affect your family's life. in a few years, your family could either be struggling to survive or thriving based on the policy positions that these people put out. So for me, it's going to take more than somebody showing up and being Black or being a woman or South Asian, whatever nationality they are. It's going to take more than that for me to give somebody my vote. Votes are earned. And especially to all the Black voters who vote Democrat just because your mother did it and the grandmother did it and generations before you have been doing it. I don't care who's been voting Democrat before me. I don't care if my mother voted Democrat and my father and all the generations before me voted Democrat. I don't owe the Democratic Party a thing. I don't owe Kamala Harris a thing. She's running for office. She is the one who owes the American people. She owes the American people an explanation. She owes the American people clarity on her policy positions and how they are going to help the American people. She is the one indebted to the American people. The American people are not indebted to her. I don't owe her anything, or the Democratic Party.
Not only do we not owe the Democratic Party nothing, but I feel like they owe us. You know what I'm saying? They owe us some answers. They owe us some credit and an apology for insulting our intelligence, as you're going to see this woman who just nuked MSNBS. I think it's NDC. Yeah, MSNBS for being propagandist. And you're going to realize that, hey, just because I'm Black and I support Donald Trump, don't mean it's just for the check. I swear you're going to be like, wow.
And this is sound of Donald Trump at his rally in North Carolina today without Mark Robinson. And what he had to say about Oprah.
Did you see her on Oprah? That's not going to be president. Oprah didn't know what the hell to do. Oprah was like embarrassed. She wanted to hide under the table. But she's a professional and she was able to sort of disguise it. No, she wanted to go right under the table.
Whitley, why does Donald Trump lie like that? I mean, everybody knows. Come on.
I think that there were times during that interview where it looked like Oprah was trying to figure out where VP Harris was going. And I think when we're looking at this circumspectly, when we're talking about battleground states and talking to working everyday Americans, utilizing a billionaire who's not dealing with the cost of inflation, with stagnant wages, with stagnant industries is really just out of touch. And I think that's what he really meant to say, is that hiding behind Hollywood, as opposed to really just talking about the policies of your administration, may not be working specifically in battleground states.
That is literally rich, Whitley.
Thank you.
I mean,
it's wealthy. It's wealthy. It's wealthy. It's wealthy.
Rich man. Come on.
A couple of things here. So Oprah is one of the only people who has been able to have an audience of 20 million people for over many, many years. So I mean, she is a professional here and she does have an audience and she knows how to coordinate or how to appeal to wide audiences. The second thing is I'm really tired of all the surrogates and Donald Trump and the JD Vance all saying this. That's not what the candidates are saying. That is not what they're doing. They're insulting people personally. They're being mean. They're being really vindictive. They're not sticking to the issues. And if they were sticking to the issues and saying what you think they mean to say, we'd be in a much different race. But they can't control themselves and they just need to be mean and vindictive. And that's not winning them the independent voters.
Well, I definitely don't need a history lesson on Oprah, who's Black history, because I'm very familiar with all that she has done. But what I'm saying is when you're talking to people specifically in a state where the average salary is $49,000, bringing a billionaire up on stage is going to present out of touch, specifically for working class Americans. And let me explain why. It's because the issues that they're talking about does not impact her the same, as opposed to having working class people maybe engaging with her, maybe a town hall forum. She has been utilizing celebrities to promote her campaign, as opposed to utilizing working class people or utilizing them to speak to working class people. And there is a disconnect.
I don't know. I mean, did you watch the town? I mean, it was a town hall. It was a town hall style forum, and Oprah Winfrey is. I mean, she's not a talk show host now or a journalist now, but it was like watching Oprah from the 90s and the 80s.
And also the polls are closing, so clearly she's doing something right because she's meeting people where they are, because she is now leading in the polls and she's closing on issues that were Donald Trump's, like the economy and immigration. So something. working.
But polls are a snapshot in time, and we all know that, right? She was just down in the polls, specifically losing with African-American men, and this doesn't necessarily help her. When you see her utilizing celebrities in this way, when they want policies, they don't want the performance of Hollywood within their political spheres.
I mean, again, if you watched the town hall forum, you heard her talk about policies.
Ouch. Yeah. But as somebody wrote, she was absolutely correct. There isn't a celebrity out. There isn't a celebrity out there endorsing Kamala who gives a damn about the working class. And whoever he is, he's supposed to be neutral on journalists. Unbelievable. Whitley, her name, did a great job and good for her. And she snapped that other one and gave her a reality check real quick. You know, you had to get some sass. This from a woman named Tracy. Get a little bit of sass. They said the propagandists, we really struggling. Geez. I wonder if they had any moments of reflection about how much they demean themselves. Yeah, probably not. I don't think so. Now, Janet Jackson told no lies. Let me go and pull it up. I didn't even have it prepared. I'm just literally going to hit search in Janet Jackson. It should be one of the first things that pop up. So yeah, it actually is. So it says right here. Why did it scroll down? Hold on, let me get y'all on this. It says right here, Janet Jackson repeats right-wing conspiracy theory about Kamala Harris race and wild Guardian interview that she did. Of course, this was posted by someone on the left. But she's a conspiracy theorist just because she doesn't support Kamala Harris. That y'all can read the cap. I mean, you know what I mean, up here. Let's cut off a little bit for y'all.
Big man.
Now the great Janet Jackson is a conspiracy theorist because she's not with the lies and the BS. Every time someone doesn't jump on I support Kamala train, the negative hit piece is going to fly like clockwork. Interview, wow. But all of this is laughable at this point, he wrote. But can we cancel Janet Jackson?
Black folk. Let me make sure I get this straight. You want to cancel Janet Jackson, Michael's little sister, in the same month that Tito died. You want to cancel Penny from Good Times. You want to cancel a cultural icon that we grew up with, that we know for certain is Black. We know the whole family, from the father to the mama to the brothers and sisters, even some of the cousins.
Yeah, because in an interview, they went on to go, misinformation, woo, woo, woo. And we got a lot of people giving us mixed reviews online about this, but come on. Somebody wrote, I've always considered the Jackson family to be American royalty. Not Joe, but the rest of the family, somebody said. And they went on to talk about how they set up Michael Jackson and responsible for, his unaliving. Yeah, he talked about his childhood being influenced, but yeah, he loved her. And she's such a huge influence is what I'm reading. Yeah, man. But even outside of that, she's somebody who's just allowed to have her own thought process. I'm not going to let y'all sit there and try to kick her out the Black community just because she don't like what y'all, she don't agree with what y'all like, bro. Come on, man.
A lot of promises, haven't we? They told us they would do everything except walk on water, except make a money tree appear in your backyard, except unite all the racists that we all hug and kiss, plant flowers together and go skipping down the roadway. And we know that hasn't happened. But see, I think there's even more to it than that. I think that if you're going to have yourself a politician in office, a president, a mayor, a governor, of anything along those lines, you got to be able to hold them accountable. And that's the true purpose of independent media. Independent media is supposed to be the one entity. It's not connected to the big corporations. It's not bowing to the whims of whoever the elites are. They're supposed to be the difference maker. They're supposed to sound the alarms, let the masses know when it's time to get a politician up out of there. For some reason, everyone in this election cycle is asking the same question. Tim, why don't you like Kamala Harris? When they should be asking me is, Tim Black, what's causing you not to support Kamala Harris? And I would tell you emphatically, Kamala Harris is the greater evil. She's the bigger threat. She's more dangerous. And it's really got nothing to do with her as an individual. It has to do with all y'all media heads. We see independent media in general, particularly cable media, corporate liberal media, they have no intention of holding Kamala Harris accountable for anything that she does. And if you ask me, that's a recipe for disaster for any country, any group, any nation, and particularly any class of people like Black Americans who've been stuck on the bottom in this country for 400 years. Yeah, the last thing we need is a compliant media that goes along with it or with any politician because they check a couple of boxes. Haven't we already done this before? Haven't we already been here? For instance, did you see what happened at the National Association of Black Journalists? After Kamala just sat through a very softball interview where only one question of any substance was really asked, and that was on the topic of reparations. She got so pissed off, this is how she reacted at the end of it. On a real tip, guys, I don't think Kamala would have did that to white folks. Notice the pleasantries there? All right. And bam! She walked off the stage like, look at them. We really screwed that up, didn't we, Johnson? I don't think she liked us very much. Give me a hand. All right, whatever. All right, then. You take care too. Fake ass reporters. I knew I shouldn't have came up here. Fake ass, fake ass. That's why I don't mess with black people. Look at them. Gosh, man, I didn't know we do that, man.
They shocked.
Now, I want you to compare that. Compare that to this, because I know you're a very disappointing person.
Thank you. NEBJ will email about details regarding the conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris in September. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I got to cut down the sound because they're playing music. Sounds horrible. But notice the difference in body language. That's the difference in body language with the Trump. Look, Trump stands there. He waves at people. He stops. He waves at people. Takes his time. Let's run that back. This is Trump ending his contentious interview with the National Association of Black Journalists. And you see how this went, don't you? Look at that. Look, he's shaking hands. He's going to go over. He's making an effort. Shake her hand as well. She was mean to him. She was nice to him. 2 out of 3 roasted his ass almost the entire time. And look at him. He stops, he waves, gives a fist pump to the audience. And walks off slowly. I just want to point out the difference in the treatment towards the host. And guess what? No host called her racist. Nobody called her rude. I didn't hear think pieces about how horrible she was to the black woman and the black men. All I heard was nothing. I know there's going to be those of you who are going to give her all types of benefit of the doubt. You're going to say, obviously she had somewhere to go, Johnson, but she's here now. She's with us and we've got this place all decked out for her. We're all here to hear her. So damn where she got to go. And stop kissing her ass so much. Be real. Yeah, see, one of the problems that I have with Kamala Harris, and it's with a lot of other black politicians, they get a little different when they start talking to black people.
Best rapper alive.
Tupac.
He's not. You say he lives on.
Well, not a lot. I know. I keep doing. There are some that I would not mention right now because they should stay in their lane. Keep moving.
Okay,
Keep moving, Angela.
All right. That was not supposed to be a stumper either.
And after you voted, I need you to grab your friends and your family, round up Cousin Pookie.
I mean, do you believe that Joe Biden's doing that poorly among black voters?
Absolutely not. Let me tell you what you're seeing there. People are focusing on some of the unfinished business. Sure, I'm disappointed as any other black person, that we have not been able to renew the Voting Rights Act. But we are going to show why. Why haven't we done it? Because this conservative, MAGA-leaning Supreme Court has desecrated the Voting Rights Act.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Yeah, they take over the overseer. They take on the overseer mentality. They start wrinkling their foreheads. They get indignant. And I think the fact that there are a lot of black people in media who did not have the guts, the heart, the ethics to call Kamala out on this proves the point that I say that Kamala is more dangerous than Trump. See, Trump can't spit on the sidewalk without everybody coming for Trump. But Kamala can do whatever the hell she wants. And y'all won't say nothing because you lack backbone. You're not there to hold her accountable. You're there to eat off of her. Roland wants to eat off her. He don't want to hold her accountable. He don't want to make her a better president for Black America. He just wants access. Angela Rye doesn't want to make sure that Kamala does right for those black kids. Nah, she want to make sure she get invited to the next Kamala special event. Yeah, she wants to make sure that the money stays right. So she can put on a fancy dress and shame the poor people, the poor blacks. See, that's the thing I'm getting here, Johnson. I want y'all to recognize it for what it is. See, Trump can't do anything without people calling Trump on the carpet for it. Obviously, there's a difference between the way the media reacts when it's Kamala Harris and when it's Donald Trump. They asked Trump a question about Kamala's race, and he said, I didn't even know she was black until this, whatever. Then she kind of turned black, and I don't care what she is, it's fine. And they made that the most racist thing in the world to say. Though a lot of us been saying it for years. But he says it's as racist. Then Kamala got up here, turned her high ass around, and walked out. Didn't really wave to the audience, no fist pump, and peeled out. She peeled off that stage. And I didn't read The Root. Michael Harriot didn't write a think piece. Jamel Hill had nothing to say. Torre didn't have anything to say. Bakari Sellers didn't tweet how disappointed he was. Start rhyming his name or some other corny shit. Eli Mitchell didn't lose his mind, and his hair stand up straighter than it is on his weird looking head. Nah, man, Joy Reid didn't do a whack-ass monologue full of a bunch of lies and smears. Nah, nothing happened. It was as if she was cordial, as if she treated them with respect when she didn't. And even those journalists that were there that were slighted, that she peeled out, that she disrespected, left standing there stuck on stupid, they themselves did not go to Twitter. They did not go to Instagram. They did not go to YouTube. They did not go to TikTok. They did not go to Instagram. How can you not at least go to Threads? No one will go to Threads. They didn't post a Pinterest picture or nothing. They didn't say shit about what happened. Get what I'm saying? They let it ride. Yeah, they let it ride. So when I tell you I think that Kamala Harris is a more dangerous threat, that's one of the reasons. One of the things that keeps politicians in line is the people. The people help keep politicians in line. It's called approval ratings. It's called media attention. It's called the pen, the ink. It's mightier than a sword. But if you got a bunch of cowards with the pen, you got a bunch of people looking for a cushy life instead of the truth. If you got people that are afraid to say what's really going on, well, dog, you ain't really got yourself a fourth estate. You don't have media. You don't have accountability. And that's what happens when you get Kamala in. It's not even just Kamala's fault. It's Kamala being able to operate in a space where she know ain't no repercussions. She dares you to have something to say,
Keep moving.
Okay,
Keep moving, Angela.
All right. That was not supposed to be a stumper either.
And just like that, you shut up. All right, guys, let me know what you think about that. Give me
and think that Kamala Harris is truly a black woman, and she rebuked the so-called apology on her behalf. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we're going to talk about Janet Jackson apparently not believing that Kamala Harris is truly a black woman. Maybe her dad is white, maybe her mom is something else, and she has rebuked and kicked back and debunked a so-called apology that leaked on her behalf from a former PR person, manager, whatever that person wants to call themselves. Janet's actual team said, wait a minute now. We didn't apologize. She said what she said. She said what she said. She doesn't believe that Kamala Harris is truly a black woman. And as a matter of fact, her brother, Randy, is a manager and has been for a very long time. Not this random person that put out this fake apology. And before we get into anything, rest in peace to their older brother, Tito Jackson, who died recently at age 70. And if you don't know who Janet Jackson is, which I'm sure, listen, I understand 99.999% of y'all know who Janet Jackson is. This is a world famous person, been that way for a very long time. She was a child star, actress, musician. She is Janet. I mean, everybody knows who Janet Jackson is, but you guys might be kind of young. Maybe you're not American, but just a brief intro into her before we get to the actual article. Now, of course, this is Janet Jackson, part of the world famous Jackson family, obviously the sister of Michael Jackson, one of the most famous people to ever walk planet Earth. So Janet still doing her thing. She's still out there. I'm not sure if she's still touring, performing. I don't know. But Janet is Janet. Okay, everybody knows Janet Jackson. She does not believe Kamala Harris is truly a black woman, which is, in my humble opinion, the correct opinion to have. Okay, that's the correct opinion. Now, this is the article in which the story came out from The Guardian. This was published on Saturday, September 21st, 24. So let's check it out. You see the headline. This is about Michael, motherhood, and all of that. Now, deep in the article, we got to go all the way down here, all the way down to almost like the bottom. Okay, here we go. So we all the way down in the weeds of the article here. Let's zoom in. Okay. Now you see this pull quote. You know what they supposedly said? Kamala Harris is not black. That's what I heard. Okay. Now check it out. On the record, she's saying about joining voices in protest, the social justice, injustice, and pushing toward a world rid of color lines. I wonder where she stands on the forthcoming election. After all, I say, America could be on the verge of voting in its first black female president, Kamala Harris. And then here's her quote. Well, you know what they supposedly said? She asked me. She's not black. That's what I heard. That she's Indian. She looks at me expectantly, perhaps assuming that I have Indian heritage. That's funny. Well, she's both, I offer. She doubles down. Her father's white. That's what I was told. I mean, haven't watched the news in a few days. She coughs. I was told that they discovered her father was white. Now, then the interviewer responds, I'm floored at this point. It's a well-known, I guess, fact. It's well known that Kamala Harris's father is a Jamaican economist, a Stanford professor who split from her Indian mother when she was 5. My mother understood very well that she was raising 2 black daughters, Harris wrote in her book, A Truth Be Told, or Truth Behold. Now, listen, what does Jamaican got to do with anything? Jamaican is not the same as being Indian. When you're Indian, you typically are like an ethnic group. Okay. But when you are Jamaican, that's just a nationality. It's like being American. So if you say somebody's American, are they automatically white? I think not. Although that's a majority population, it's not the only population. I'm an American, and we've been here since the boat, the 1700s. I could trace family back all the way to the boat. We've been here for 300, 400 years. So I'm an American, the same as a white American, the same as anybody born in this country. Same thing with Jamaica. Okay, it's not just black people in Jamaica. You got whites, Chinese, Indians, like Kamala's mom. You got a biracial. You got a little bit of everything in Jamaica. It's not just a majority black population. Okay, now let's read this. Let's read some more of this. The people who are most vocal in questioning the facts of Harris's identity tend to be hardcore QAnon adjacent, Trump loving conspiracy theorists. Oh, is that what I am? I'm a QAnon person. Okay. When I'm looking at pictures of Kamala's family, we'll get to those in a minute. And I'm seeing Indian people. When I see her on the stage after the DNC with a bunch of non-black people that's in her family, I'm like, where's the black at? How do you get black from all the other races that don't really look like black at all? Anyway, they continue. I don't think Jackson falls into that camp, but I do wonder what the algorithms are serving her. I start again. Harris has dual heritage, I say, and given this moment, does Jackson think America is ready for, if we agree she's black, or okay, a woman of color, not black, but she's colored. Okay, she's colored. Are we ready for a color in the Oval Office? That's what she said. Okay, some may be offended at me saying colored, but how is it different than saying woman of color? All you did make it a little bit fancy. Colored people, people of color, it's the exact same phrase. Anyway, Miss Jackson responds, I don't know. Jackson stage whispers. Honestly, I don't want to answer that because I really, truthfully don't know. I think either way it goes is going to be mayhem. She doesn't think there are people. Okay, so then they're getting into the transition of power, all this, that, and the third. Okay, so you kind of understand what's going on. Janet is not really buying into this whole thing about Kamala being a black woman, which is, in my opinion, again, correct. Now, there was an apology that got leaked, okay? And like I said, her team said, that's not true. We didn't apologize for what we said. Not at all. Let me get down here a little bit. So this guy named Mo El Masri. Now, the guy claimed to be a manager. He's not. Her manager is her brother, Randy, and he's been a manager for a long time, many years. But his statement says Janet Jackson would like to clarify her recent comments. She recognizes that her statements regarding Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity were based on misinformation. Janet respects Harris's dual heritage as both Black and Indian and apologizes for any confusion caused. She values the diversity Harris represents and understands the importance of celebrating that in today's society. Janet remains committed to promoting unity and understanding. That was 100% fake. That guy wrote that, put it out without authorization at all from Janet's camp. Okay. She's like, look, I said what I said. That's just, not true. All right. So look, the singer has been managed by her brother Randy for many years. Siblings are said to be more than her older brother Tito, who died at age 70. Again, rest in peace. Now they contacted the guy who put the fake statement out. And then he says, quote, I no longer work for her. I was fired by Janet and Randy after attempts to improve her image and vote on public opinion and her fans. And this is something I do not deserve. He then offers all my support to Vice President Harris. Jackson's reps did not immediately have a response, although sources close to her tell Team Variety that El Masri is not known to have been directly associated with the singer. Okay, so you putting out fake stuff. I said what I said. I doubled down on it. It is what it is. All right. It is what it is. Now, can we get to Kamala's ancestry a little bit? Can we just get to it? Now, who do you see in this picture? Do you see any black people? I don't. What kind of black people wear the red dots and the saris and all that kind of stuff? Hey, shout out to the Indians, though. I love my Indian people. You guys are fantastic. The people that I know, good people, good food, overall, just good people. Okay. Now, just because they're good people doesn't mean that it's okay to just, she is not black. That's her right there on the left. Okay. That's her on the left. That's her, I believe, aunt and uncle. Okay. That's her sister right there. And then I'm not sure who the youngins are, but I don't see anybody black in this picture. I see Indians, and that's okay. It's okay to be Indian. It's okay to be black. It's okay to be white. Whatever you are, it's okay to be. It's okay to be biracial, multicultural. But you can't say that you're black when your dad might be, at best, a biracial mulatto. That's him right there in the middle. Now, listen, I'm not necessarily a mathematician. I'm not Albert Einstein, but let's do a little bit of quick math. Okay, your mom, listen, let's go back a little bit. Okay, hold on 1 second. Your mom is straight from the Indian subcontinent. Okay, straight from the Indian subcontinent. Your dad is at best a black and white biracial mixed mulatto at best. So if he's half black and your mom is not black at all, how do you get from that a black person? And I'm hearing different things. They said that her father, by his name, by the way, is what's his name? Donald Harris, if I'm not mistaken, the professor. He allegedly, from what I heard, is white and Indian. That's what I heard. But if you ask me what I think by looking at him, I'm seeing black and white at best. Again, half black, half white plus 100% Indian does not equal a black woman. It is what it is. So that's an older picture of her parents. You can kind of see the afro, all that kind of stuff, you know. And that's her mom. So you're talking about a Southern Indian woman, okay, looking like Mindy Kaling and her people, right? Southern Indian woman plus a black and white guy, that doesn't equal a black woman. Biracial, yes, sure. Multiracial, yes, sure. But that's it. So Janet was not wrong in what she said, and she was right to not back down. How dare you put out a fake apology? I didn't say that. I said what I said. It is what it is. But as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to Janet Jackson for standing on what she believes in, standing on what she said, and not being bullied by the interviewer at The Guardian, not being bullied by this dude, this random person claiming to be the manager who's not a manager. Shout out to her for just, hey, this is my opinion. I don't really know, but this is what I think. I'm not really prepared to call her a black woman because I'm seeing some things that don't really add up. That is the right way to be, in my humble opinion, but I think I'll leave that right there.
Between Stephen A. Smith and Chris Wallace, and it had to do with the increased support that Trump is enjoying in this election cycle among young Black voters. So while Kamala Harris has managed to increase her support among Black voters overall, polling still suggests that Donald Trump has held on to his increased support among young Black males. Now, according to the latest Morning Consult poll, which was published this week, they found that Harris has a 60-point lead among Black voters, with 78% backing her and about 18% picking Trump. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris has a bigger lead among Black voters. That's clear. But it's also clear that according to not just this poll, but several polls, Donald Trump has managed to increase his support among young Black male voters. So just for comparison's sake, let's take a look at what happened in 2020. So Black voters remained overwhelmingly loyal to the Democratic Party in 2020, voting 92% for Biden and 8% for Donald Trump. But keep in mind that Donald Trump in that election had increased his support among Black voters and Latino voters, by the way. And so Biden's share of votes by Black people actually ended up decreasing by 3 percentage points compared to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Okay, so Democrats keep losing support among Black voters. And if you want to like even be even more precise, the demographic is young Black males. Okay, so you guys get the point.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our.
With that in mind, Chris Wallace asked Stephen A. Smith, like, what do you think is happening here? Why do you think Trump is doing relatively well with young Black men. And Stephen A. Smith responds and says, I think that it's a combination of the disgust and the absence of trust that an abundance of people, not just Black males, but an abundance of people in America have with Capitol Hill. All right, so I want to pause right there because I think he really did hit the nail on the head. I think that Donald Trump is the middle finger manifested in human form. And I think that the individuals who support him, they might support him for other reasons as well, but I do think that one of the dominant reasons is that it's giving a middle finger to our political establishment, to our institutions. And a lot of Americans feel like those institutions and the political establishment has let them down, whether we're talking about the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment.
Yeah, I think Stephen A. Smith nailed it.
Yeah.
And I don't often say that. So, and he's way more conservative than I am, as far as I can tell based on his public comments. But I think he's right about this one. And it's the Democrats playing with fire. They never delivered, they never delivered, they never deliver. And then they just keep asking for your votes. And at some point, it's gonna catch up with you. In a sense, they're lucky because their opponent is so over the top. He's talking about how immigrants are eating cats and dogs. She's running against a literal lunatic and barely winning. She has a 1-point lead in Wisconsin, and if she loses that, she loses the whole election. I mean, that shows you how much the American people are sick of the Democratic Party and the establishment. So if you're a Democrat, like if that hurts your feelings, I hear you, brothers and sisters, but we as a party have to do better, right? Like if you can't just go, I blame the American people. No, they're experiencing it. Like so, and I say this because look, I know tons of people who think, what do you mean? Biden gave us 10% positive change, and I didn't need any change. And all of a sudden, I got a gift of an extra 10% of positive change. That's amazing. He's like FDR. But when you need 100% change, 10% ain't gonna do it. It's a matter of perspective. For people who are wealthy, people who are doing well, they think, what more do you want, right? But for the average American, a lot more, because corporate rule has been taking and taking and taking from us. And that's not what the establishment doesn't realize or doesn't want to know.
High inflation, high interest rates. Like you can talk about specific legislation that Biden managed to pass, but you could also talk about the promises that Biden made but failed to keep. And when it comes to the day-to-day, in terms of what Americans are experiencing, it is the inflation, it is the high interest rates, which are now starting to come down. Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by 50 basis points yesterday. And so we're gonna head in that direction because inflation has slowed, but a huge portion of Biden's term was dealing with this high inflation, and Americans are pissed about it. They're mad about it. And so you could talk about the CHIPS Act, you could talk about the infrastructure bill. But again, what is the lived experience day to day of ordinary Americans?
Yeah, and here's another thing that's super important. The average American doesn't know and doesn't care about the parliamentarian or the filibuster. So when you said to them that you were gonna do voting rights for African Americans, and then you barely even tried and it went nowhere, we didn't even have a debate over it, it was just gone, right? It looks like you weren't even trying. When you told everybody, hey, if you're an average guy here and you're just starting or you're struggling and you're getting minimum wage, we're gonna get you $15 minimum wage. They actually believed you. Yeah. And then when Biden took that out first bill, first thing he did was take out minimum wage. He was lying all along. So if you do lie after lie after lie, you don't even deliver paid family leave, that polls at 84%.
Yeah.
I mean, how ridiculous are you?
Also, allowing the child tax credit to expire, that's a real financial benefit in people's lives that has been taken away.
Yeah, and that leads to guys not just being disappointed with Biden or the current Democratic Party or even Kamala Harris as part of the administration. It leads to them not believing you.
Right.
So when you come and you say, oh, this time I'm gonna do minimum wage, and this time I'm gonna do a bigger child tax credit, and this time I'm gonna raise corporate taxes. That's what you said last time, and you didn't even try any of those things. You did the child tax credit for 1 year. It was a spectacular success. It lowered child poverty by about 50%. It was one of the most stunning government programs ever. And then you took it away.
Yeah.
Oh, but the parliamentarian wouldn't let me pass it. Get the hell out of here. It has nothing to do with that. Your corporate donors wouldn't let you pass
Where
it.
there's a will, there's a way. But Stephen A. Smith also continued to talk about how it's not just the message that Donald Trump is delivering to the political elites, the political establishment, and our institutions. It's the way in which he's delivering that message. He says, listen, when it comes to Donald Trump, he speaks a lot of folks' language. They don't care as much about the message. They care about how he's delivering the message because he delivers it in a way that they want to deliver it to Capitol Hill. So we've talked about this before in different contexts, right? So in this case, it's the harsh message to the political elites, but it's also the simple common man way that he communicates. And I do think that resonates with some voters. Now, who does Stephen A. Smith think will actually ultimately win the election? Well, he's very clear. He says, I still believe it's going to be Kamala Harris that's going to win this election. Wallace asks, really? And he says, I really do. I think she's going to win this election because I think that when you take away the fringes, folks on the fringe, on the extreme right and left, and you get to the center, I think ultimately people are going to look at her, regardless of what they're saying about her, they're going to look at her and say, you can work with her. And finally, he says, and the way of the streets of America were
when he departed.
Okay, so he's basically talking about like, look, people don't want to go back to what they experienced, especially in like the final year of Donald Trump. You have the coronavirus pandemic, you have all of this chaos, you have all of this instability. People aren't going to want to go back to that. So he believes that ultimately people will get out the vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and of course, January 6th. He said 2020, but he was referring to the last days of Trump as well. And so people don't want to go back to that madness where if the guy loses, he says, destroy democracy, bring in the fake electors, show them how strong you are at the Capitol, et cetera. All that madness. God, isn't it going to be an incredible relief when this Trump guy's finally out of our lives? Oh my God, the guy's such a clown that even if he gets clowned this time and loses, maybe he's not out of our lives. Maybe he'll try again. And maybe MAGA is so insane that they'll nominate him again. I don't know.
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that what you just said is very common among Democrats, right? They think that the real problem is Donald Trump, and once he's gone, everything will be okay again. But it's not just Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a symptom, okay? The Republican voters favor Trump. It's the Republican voters who he didn't even have to participate in the primary debates. So they're going to look for a future candidate who is like Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's 100% right. It's just that it's hard to replicate the mania of Trump.
That's true.
Right, in both in terms of the way he speaks to people and animates them, and so in order to get that kind of energy, so that's a downside for the Republicans that he'll be hard to replace in that way. But also the mania, like almost psychological terrorism, where he's such a loose cannon. You don't know what the hell he's going to do on any given day. Every day you wake up, did he launch? Is his button bigger than North Korea's? Is he going to launch there? Is he going to cause a war in the Middle East? Is he going to wreck the economy? Is he going to, is he going to nuke a hurricane? What the hell is he going to do, right? Because he's so mentally unstable. So Josh Hawley or JD Vance or Vivek Ramaswamy might be faux populist, right? And they might lead in the wrong direction, but it's hard for them to replicate that same kind of mania that Trump has that is so unnerving.
I can agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
And then last thing is Stephen A. Smith is also right about the way he speaks. And this is another thing that the Democrats and the establishment, the media don't understand at all. They can't get it through their heads. Who's better at speaking to the average American, Donald Trump or Adam Schiff?
Oh, come on.
No, in Washington, Adam Schiff would win like 97-3.
I mean, snooze fest.
Right.
Like no one's interested, okay?
And if you're like a diehard Democrat, especially if you're really well educated, you're like, what do you mean? Adam Schiff speaks just like my professors in school.
Okay, but people don't wanna hear your professors in school. People want to hear a message that resonates with them, Remember what got George W. Bush elected in, was it 2000? 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was because he was the kind of guy that they can see themselves having a beer with.
Even
So,
though he was an alcoholic who stopped drinking, but yeah.
okay, but you guys get the point.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today.
What that did for her campaign, if anything, very much projecting that that's the direction that they're going in. So
Having an exclusive conversation with a forecaster, give some of our election predictions, maps on the screen. We are officially in the absolute run-up to the election. Only 43 days until that happens, and people are already voting, including in the state of Virginia nearby. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, the video. This was a Virginia precinct on the very first day of early voting. You can see people lined up around the block. People really made an event of it. I personally experienced this as well when I was walking around on Friday. I was stunned at the crowds. I was like, well, maybe a fancy new shop or something open. Nope, it was elections. That's what it was. People were voting. People were geared up. Most of these people are going to be upper middle class liberals because this is Northern Virginia, but it does demonstrate that there is a lot of enthusiasm. In fact, the one-day voting record was broken by 1 p.m. Prior to 2022, more people had already voted by just in the middle of the day than in 2022 in that election. So there's significantly a lot of enthusiasm. I am told in the rural districts in Virginia, there were similar levels of enthusiasm as well. So Trump people are also showing up to vote, but they just don't live around here in Northern Virginia. So it's a tight election. People are fired up. They're ready to go. And we're in for it, Crystal.
yeah, and this is also when we start to get into the phase of election where people look to any sort of metric that they can to grab onto to figure out what the hell is going on. And I would just caution 2020, let's all, put our minds back where that was during the pandemic. It was a totally different electoral landscape. So you really can't compare the early voting numbers here with the early voting numbers there, because it just was such a totally different situation with people wanting to vote early, with the fact that Trump was discouraging anything other than day of election voting. It really is an apples and orange comparison. I'm sorry, I know that's not satisfying, but I just wanted to put that into the mix. Like, don't make too much of any of these early data signs, because it's very difficult, I think, to compare them to past election cycles.
Exactly. I'm glad that you said that, because that's one of those where there will be quite a bit. And I've actually seen a lot of these go viral. They're like, if we just correct the polls for 2016 and 2020, Trump is 100% going to win. I'm like, yeah, there's just one problem, is that we had a 2022 election. So, and also, I keep saying this, elections are every 4 years. We don't have a very good sample size. We have some knowledge of what things are, and outliers happen all the time. And as debates don't matter, right? Famously. It's like, well, what does it say? Until they do. So there you go. Let's go to A2, please, up on the screen. This is important from Nate Silver. We now see, he says, quote, the big picture. This is his latest election forecast. Who is favored to win the presidency? He actually has now Kamala at 51% and Donald Trump at 48.6%. That's basically a coin toss. You might as well look at that. Anybody trying to parse like, oh, Kamala's up or Trump is out. Listen, 48.6% versus 51. That is 50-50. And basically, in my mind, anything in the 60-40 range might as well be 50-50, just because of how the polls have been off in both directions. Just this morning, underscoring that is a slew of polls from the New York Times. We can go ahead and put that on the screen. This should show you as close as it possibly can get for what the electoral map could look like. So the New York Times has Trump with significant strength in the Sun Belt battleground states. For example, in the state of Arizona, They have Donald Trump at 50% to Harris's 45%. You have Georgia, Donald Trump at 49% to Harris's 45%. Both of those are actually quite good polls for Trump because previously you had seen things differently. I should note, at least for Georgia, that they are within the margin of error. And then in North Carolina, you have 49 to 47. I would put that North Carolina number effectively at a tie, especially considering some of the North Carolina news we have later on in the show. But what we can learn, at least from this, is if you look at the overall polling average that they peg theirs against, Crystal, Arizona, they have Trump +5, the polling average Trump +2. Georgia, they have Trump +4, polling average is Trump +2. North Carolina, the polling average is even, and they have Trump +3. So those are the latest polls that they are pegging themselves. You should also look to some of the past polling where they didn't necessarily have Trump up nearly this much in the state of Arizona. But, now is crunch time. Most people, a lot of people actually, as swing voters, some past data indicates they don't really make up their mind until about 3 to 4 weeks before the election. That could change because you can vote a lot earlier now these days. So maybe right now is like really the crunch time for people and how they're thinking about the election. You watch a show like this, and they're kind of an outlier relative to the general population, and how they think about politics and all that can actually change significantly. And in such a close election like today, it's make or break time for both the candidates.
I mean, we're just waiting to see which way the polling mist goes.
Yeah, we just don't know. Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's nothing against the pollsters. It's gotten increasingly hard to poll for understandable reasons. Like, people are on cell phones. There's a low response. Then you have these response rate biases where when something happens that one side is really excited about, then they want to pick up the phone and talk to the pollster, et cetera. So, it's very perplexing to look at like the New York Times Siena polls that just came out, which are really bad for Kamala Harris, and then look at the NBC News polls that just came out, which are really good for Kamala Harris. But the truth of the matter is, both of them, if you factor in the margin of error, are continuing to show a really tight, really close race. I do want to dwell for a second on the Nate Silver model, because part of why he was so pessimistic about Kamala Harris coming out of the convention, where other models showed more strength for her, and now the streams have crossed again, and he has her as a very slight favorite. He had factored in like, I'm going to assume that she's going to get this 2-point post-convention bounce, and so I'm going to basically like back that out of my averages, and that's how he ended up showing so much Trump strength coming out of the convention. And now that the polls haven't shifted all that much, and his model has shifted a lot, I think it's fair to say, like, factoring that in may not have really been Trump didn't get a convention bounce. So there were extenuating circumstances, Biden dropping out of the race, whatever. But I think also Kamala doesn't appear to have gotten that much of a convention bounce either. And backing that out and assuming that she did, and then sort of like dinging her for that, I'm not sure that actually bore out in reality, which is just a testament to the fact, look, again, you have to go based on history. That's what he's working on.
Yes.
This is, again, not to slam him or whatever. I know everybody's like doing their best they can with the data that they have. But I think it just shows you this is a very kind of locked in electorate. There's going to be very little movement between these two candidates. These polls are going to look like 50-50, basically from here to Election Day. And one other thing I wanted to flag, especially in light of the new New York Times Siena poll that shows, Georgia with Trump with a little bit of an edge there. In general, I think the polls have tended to show him in Georgia with a little bit of an edge, and him doing a little bit better in Georgia than North Carolina, which is kind of interesting as well. And obviously reverse of last time. But we just got the news out of Georgia that their board of elections, which has been stacked with a lot of sort of like hardcore Trump loyalists, has now determined that they're going to require all Election Day votes to be hand counted. Hand counted. That means Georgia is going to take forever to come in on Election night.
Yes.
I think it's a horrible idea. I think it injects chaos into an already chaotic situation, but that's what they've decided. So just keep in mind, we are probably going to be waiting Election night a long time to actually figure out what the heck is going on in Georgia. And then the other piece of that is the rural areas that are obviously stronger for Trump and obviously have very much lower population counts. They are likely to come in earlier than the larger population centers. So you could have this, what we had back in 2020, the quote unquote red mirage in Georgia, where it looks like Trump is running way ahead. because the areas that are stronger for Democrats come in later with this new hand counting, which I again think is a horrible idea, but that's what they've decided.
Well, what they say is that that it would basically, it could take not even the day of, it could commence day of, but I mean, it could take up to weeks, apparently, according to some of the board members that are there. I do believe that this will undergo significant court challenge, so this isn't 100% just yet. Both about feasibility, some of the people who are against this are claiming that it's literally impossible to do, but it does demonstrate. I mean, look, this is always the chaos in the United States, where all 50 states get to decide how they run their own elections, and they all have their own proclivities. On the other side of the coin for Kamala was a decent run coming out of NBC. Let's put this up there on the screen. For example, we have her at registered polls. They claim a 5% lead. Harris 49, Trump 44. Quote, Harris favorability has jumped 16 points since July, according to them. The largest increase for any politician in NBC since Bush's 43 standing surge after 9/11.
Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. If we continue in the battleground run, let's go to this one. But this does show, really a similar story where, according to them, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Harris is actually leading and or tied. So they have Michigan at 50-48 for Harris. Pennsylvania, they have 49-49, basically tied. Wisconsin, they have 50-48 for Harris. So she, according to them, is showing strength in those traditional blue wall states. In Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, though, they had her up. For example, in Arizona, and we're down by 1 in Georgia, up by 3 in Nevada, and then up by 1 in the state of North Carolina. When you combine it, though, with New York Times Siena, I think you do see a pretty significant 50-50. Basically, any one that shows her winning, also there's an equally decent one to show her losing. In terms of the betting markets, there has been an interesting move. If we could go to Polymarket, please, and put A5 on the screen. Polymarket, which currently has about $1 billion worth of bets on the presidential election, has Kamala at 52-47 as of yesterday. I just checked it, and it looks like it's 51-47 now. So there you go. It basically 50-50 again. For anybody who is an avid bettor, you would know that there's significant upside, I think, for the people who are working spreads and others for 52-47. But you could just see there that is as close to tie as it gets. And Harry Enton over at CNN, he's got decent analysis, and he always tries to point out this is the closest election in almost 60 years here in the United States. And if that's the truth, on election day, I think we should all just be comfortable with the fact that we're almost certainly not going to know the results of the election on the day of, especially if that Georgia number remains where it is. Recall last time around, nobody was able to officially call the election, 5 days in 2020. There's going to be some difference because there won't be as many mail-in ballots possibly and all of that. But, be comfortable with patience and be comfortable with just waiting for a lot of data, because it looks like that's the direction that things are going now.
I have not reconciled myself to that reality.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm
not ready to yet.
Yeah.
Not ready.
Not preferable outcome, but
yeah. Well, last time, I mean, if recollection serves, sometime 2 a.m., 3 a.m., it became pretty clear that it was going to be Joe Biden. That's when you started to get a clearer sense of Arizona, clearer sense of Georgia, Pennsylvania, but as you said, it took days before I think Fox News was the first to officially call it, right?
Yes.
And
over a very questionable Arizona call.
Hey, they ended up being right.
They ended up being right, but that's like being right on roulette.
They ended up being right.
Yeah.
But then obviously, I mean, this is the thing, is when it's close, then it opens the window for Trump. Tried this last time. I don't think there's any reason we should expect him not to try this time again if he is on the losing end of a close election, to do everything he can to go to the courts and gum up the works and claim it's stolen. And, they're already in a lot of ways setting the stage for that. So just buckle up, because here we go again.
Yep, that's right. Be comfortable with ambiguity. That's where things stand as of right now. Hey, if you like that
Harris has done it again. She did an interview with Oprah. It wasn't an interview. It was a rally. It was a town hall rally. And even then, I'm telling you, you listen to this and tell me, this is how I would talk when I was on Xanax. If I took too many Xanax, this is how I used to talk when I was having anxiety problems, which I still have. I just don't take the Xanax for. But watch this. Watch this.
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American.
Even Oprah's like, oh, I can't take this shit. Oh, but did you see her? You see her? She's like, God damn it.
Oprah has been through some doozies.
She's like, oh my God, I can't. She's going on one of her rants. Watch, I'll play it from the stop.
Country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is? It sounds like you're clicking the Demerol. You're getting surgery. You click the Demerol pen. You know, you got the little pen to give you more fucking morphine.
That's what it sounds like.
I love our country.
Yeah, I love our country.
We love it.
We all love our country, right? More Demerol. We all love
Give Oprah the Demerol. She's got to sit through this.
All right, let's take it from the top.
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American. And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people.
We were.
Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being, because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are, which includes freedom to make decisions about your own body,
I gotta go.
to be safe from gun violence, freedom to have access to the ballot box, freedom to be who you are and just be, to love who you love openly and with pride, freedom to just
be.
And that's who we are. We believe in all that. And so
she was expecting people to applaud and nobody did it. She's like, oh, I got to keep going. And that's exactly, watch, I'll back it up. Go ahead.
I can't believe you didn't cut to Oprah dousing herself in gasoline.
Openly and with pride, freedom to just be.
No applause.
And that's who we are. We believe in all that. And so this is a moment where we stand knowing what we are fighting for. We're not fighting against. It's what we're fighting for.
Thank you. Oprah's like, okay, all right. Okay.
Things are bigger, yet smaller. San Dimas High School football rules.
Look at Oprah or whoever that is who replaced her, taking in all that bullshit and trying to act like it means something. Isn't that beautiful? Thank you. Okay, come on, stop it. We got to get a black woman to be president. Stop it.
Oprah was like, if I didn't have a belly full of Ozempic right now, I'd have shit myself waiting for you to.
So she actually took a question from people who are struggling to pay their mortgage.
I hope she talks about them being middle class.
And she did another word salad. Here we go.
So, Madam Vice President, we are, like many, many young Americans, just experiencing a very high cost of living. We ended up giving up our apartment, moving in with our parents who were so gracious to take us in for over a year so that we could save money and ultimately buy a home, because that's what we thought the American dream was, to get married and buy a home and have a baby. And now here we are, and our mortgage is incredibly higher than what we thought it would be. And My sister and our brother-in-law are living with us right now so that they can hopefully one day do the same. And while it's beneficial for us because they help us pay off some of our mortgage, it's also beneficial for them because they can save on cheaper rent. But we really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and
rightly having the right to have. Do you listen to what it's? Oh, here we go.
Dreams and ambitions for your family, and
look at her
working
face.
hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries.
Oh,
so that's why
I know. I said, how will you do that? How?
You mean the groceries that got more expensive while you were in office? You mean those groceries? Here we go. She doesn't tell you how she's gonna do it. But look at this woman's face. She realizes she's not going to get an answer at this point. She's like, oh.
Let me tell you something about people that have a public and private position. A bunch of them are going to secretly vote Trump while they publicly pretend they're not going to vote Trump. That's what that tells me. Yep.
For example, price gouging, which is when, most companies and corporations are good, but for those bad ones, they take advantage of people, especially during a pandemic or extreme weather, and they end up jacking up prices, and there needs to be accountability and consequence for that. So I'm going to be taking on price gouging. But it's also about dealing with what we need to do around home ownership, right? So as someone mentioned during this film, look, I grew up a child of a mother who worked very hard. She raised me and my sister, and she saved up. And by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy a home. And we grew up actually for a long time in an apartment on top of a childcare center that was owned by the woman we called our second mother because she helped my mother raise us.
Oh my God.
Who cares?
She literally just said this 2 days ago on another interview about her mother and her second mother and raising a family. She's repeating the same stuff over and over again.
I love what Walter.
Thank you for your question. First of all,
first of all, I heard people say this as I travel around. I am traveling.
The cost of living is a cost we all share with those who live on after us, as well as those who live before us, but are still alive, which should be all of us.
Walter Kern says the Oprah Harris interview is making the Oprah Prince Harry Meghan interview look like the Yalta Conference or a meeting of the Roman Senate.
That's a fair assessment. The Harry and Meghan, Oprah sat through that with a straight face. She was good. She did it. She sat there as they heard how hard their lives are.
I would have to say that Kamala Harris, when left to just talk to people, cannot help but shit the bed. She shits the bed. She has a mental breakdown every time. She just gobbledygook and talk. But she's exactly what the establishment wants. She's an empty vessel.
Look at Oprah's face.
Yeah.
Oprah's like, are you seeing this? Oprah's like, listen, you're going to have to try to kill Trump again because this ain't working. I don't know. Do something. Trigger one of those MKs and get him out of here.
Hey, come see us on tour. Be in Tempe, Arizona, Burbank, California, and we're going to be in Honolulu, January 11th. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. The 11th, go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Champagne Joshi tweeted out, a new whistleblower has come forward alleging the second assassination attempt on Trump may have been a Secret Service inside job.
Wow.
So this is from Josh Hawley. So that's Josh Hawley. He sends this to the Honorable Ronald L. Rowe Jr., Acting Director of the U.S. Secret Service. He says, Dear Acting Director Rowe, my office has received new whistleblower information regarding the most recent attempt on the life of former President Donald Trump, raising a troubling question about Secret Service protocols on that day. A whistleblower with direct knowledge of Secret Service protection at former President Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach, an individual who has in fact protected President Trump at that very location, alleges there are, quote, known vulnerabilities, end quote, in the fence line surrounding the course, places that offer a clear line of sight to the former president and others playing the course. As a result, the whistleblower alleges it has been Secret Service protocol to post up agents at these vulnerable spots when Trump visits the course. That apparently did not happen on September 15th. Instead, the gunman was permitted to remain along or near the fence line for some 12 effing hours.
Mm-hmm.
It is further unclear from your recent press conference whether agents swept the perimeter of the golf course at any point or whether drones were used to surveil the fence line. The reality is that the would-be assassin should never have been able to linger around the course for that long undetected. Please answer immediately the following questions raised by these new whistleblower. So then he has questions. Did the secrets?
I like a whistleblower's brain. Like the fact that it happened means all of that you could assume. The fact that it happened at all.
Yeah.
My whistleblower that I was like, oh, obviously somebody let that happen because I saw it happen. That's the only way that can happen.
And of course, there's known vulnerabilities. But I think the whistle that's being blown here is that they didn't do what they normally do. That they normally put people at those vulnerable places, and they didn't. And so, when I've heard the Secret Service talk about this, they didn't say, "Hey, you know what? Our bad. We forgot to post the people that we normally post in those vulnerable areas." What they said was they were patting themselves on the back for catching the guy.
Yeah,
and,
we stopped Iran yet again. When are we going to go make Iran stop this? Those guys, remember I told you those were DHS on loan the first time, not Secret Service.
Right.
They were DHS, and I was right. I got that from Dark Journalist, the guy's channel is. But they claim they have a manpower shortage, the Secret Service. We just don't have the manpower.
We just don't have the manpower. Where are we going to go? Well, maybe we could tap into that $175 billion we sent to Ukraine. I don't know.
Oh, maybe some of the illegal migrants we're bringing on purpose can become the Secret Service for Trump.
So underneath our friend Champagne's post, someone said, I don't doubt the possibility of an inside job, but I did not pick up that insinuation in reading Hawley's letter. Am I missing something? The insinuation, he goes, known vulnerabilities implies that they knew the fence line was susceptible to a security breach and have secured it in the past, but for some unknown reason, they didn't that day and let a lunatic with an AK-47 roam the property for 12 hours. The implication and mere fact this person is blowing the whistle should be clear. Yeah, I saw a lot of people like trying to push back on that, like, oh, it's not a whistleblower. Well, Josh Hawley calls him a whistleblower, the senator.
You need a whistleblower to know that, that doesn't happen twice unless there's a thing going on. That doesn't happen.
That's right.
People don't get their eyes poisoned at the rally. They said, you see that? The guy, some people had chemical burns on their eyes. They were sitting up front for it. After they saw somebody,
I did see a headline about that. I didn't look into it. What did you hear about it?
Because they had seen weirdos with explosives or a barrel or so, or a blue barrel or something before, but that was early in the day, and they were like, "Oh, there's another threat just after this." Then the next thing I hear is 4 people or something sitting up at the right had chemical burns on their eyes. They had to run out of there, and so some chemical was released.
This is at a Trump rally.
The one that just happened.
Yeah.
Do people think, like, I don't doubt the possibility of an inside, in quotes, of an inside job. It sounds like you do because you put it in quotes. And why would you need Hawley's letter to know that that's how that works? Are you stupid? Do people be like, come on, before we get too far fetched, that they would want to kill Trump? Are you joking?
So it's, I
don't doubt OJ could have done it.
The thing that the thing that baffles me is that even people that I like who consider themselves on the left and have their head on straight about, what the establishment and most things, they still can't bring themselves to say, yeah, it looks like somehow Trump is a thorn in the side of the establishment somehow. And they won't allow themselves to even talk about this. Like,
Trump's
I don't
such
see
a piece of shit. That's what my friend said to me. My friend who I respect, who I realized that I know more than. And it was
so,
upsetting.
I mean, again, what I say, and I'm repeating this. Someone else I heard say this, and it made sense to me as soon as I heard it, was that Trump isn't deep state corrupt. He's corrupt. He's like New York real estate corrupt. He's not, I want to kill 1 million people for the military industrial complex corrupt. And
well, they're fine with that one. They're fine with that one because what it's about is my dipshit friends that I cater to their moronic ideas about how things are, such as their dumb kids that they go and get them mutilated, the genitals mutilated and pretend that's a good person. I don't want to upset them because that's my even if they've screwed me over, all of them, I still like the guy you had on who they killed his wife and he still can't break with Democrats. They killed his wife, but can't bring himself to think maybe there's a conspiracy going on. Do you see in the mind control of that? And when you're talking about Israel, like people are falling for the stupid the pager story, right? No, they're not falling for it. It's default. And when you tell them the truth, it's upsetting. That's a narrative, a load-bearing narrative in their very reality. And you're going to pull that brick and destroy reality for them by them accepting the truth. So you can't just tell people the truth. Like, I mean, I do, but the people get upset because it's like taking a sledgehammer to their carefully crafted sandcastle they live in.
So when Bobby Kennedy stands up at a Trump rally and says
he's bad,
says that Donald Trump and I are going to end the war in Ukraine and invest that money back here, and we don't want any more foreign wars, and the crowd cheers, a stadium full of Republican voters cheer. People just dismiss that. I mean, people that I think are super insightful on a lot of things, and people who I've highlighted on this show, they just pretend that Donald Trump is. I've seen people say, "Well, if they kill Donald Trump, they're just going to replace him with a carbon copy." And then why would they be trying to kill Donald Trump? Then why would they do that? That doesn't make sense. So these people they can't allow their brain to open enough to the
understand
idea
the mafia,
that,
how the mafia works. The mafia is not all in it together, right? The mafia are competing and killing each other. The mafia, right? They're not a unified organization, even though they're all above you. They're soldiers and you're a civilian. You're not in their world. That's how your government works. But without the humanity of the mafia, they work like they work in a goddamn Kevin Smith Clerks movie, and they can't believe they have to serve the customer, and they want you dead. That's your government. So it's not as good as the mafia. It's not about
no one will even bring up the fact that the Pentagon and the CIA lied to Donald Trump about the troops and where they were, and when Donald Trump wanted to bring them back. They won't even allow themselves to say those things or write them. They won't allow themselves to go there.
Guard your heart against stumbling.
There's a reason, just like that guy I had on the show when I tried to explain to him. There's a reason why the deep state, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and the Democratic and Republican establishment and the media all push Russiagate to this day. They push Russiagate.
Why not?
And
why not get who you can get with it?
There's a reason why they did that. There's a reason why January 6th happened, and a carbon copy of January 6th happened in Brazil. A carbon copy with the CIA instigate. This is exactly. There's a reason why they did 91 felony indictments of Donald Trump, and George Bush and Dick Cheney walked the earth free men. In fact, Kamala Harris brags about their endorsement. People who ordered torture programs, people who lied us into war, people who lied about Building 7, people who wouldn't allow us to question any of that, people who lied about Seth Rich. How about the CIA who lied about Hunter Biden's laptop? So there's a reason why the CIA wants to get rid of Donald Trump, and no one will allow themselves to even ponder that for a second. Why? What is that about, you think? No one's, the CIA is not lying at the behalf of Trump. They're lying at the behest of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. The CIA, so my theory is that Donald Trump has the crazy idea that the president is supposed to control the Pentagon, the military, and the intelligence community. And as Chuck Schumer told us all in 2016, that Donald Trump is stupid to think that the CIA controls him, and he better watch his P's and Q's around the CIA. And so the real question is, well, who does the CIA and the Pentagon actually work for? Well, Mike Benz was on this show a week or two ago, and he said, look up who are all the people on the board of the Atlantic Council. It's all these huge corporations and billionaires, and that's who runs everything.
Right.
And we've always known this.
The Council on Foreign Relations is part of it. In the State,
The
State Department. CIA works for the State Department, really. State Department, the biggest scum that ever lived. Going back.
That's right. And so
the worst people who ever walked this earth, the U.S. State Department, every one of them.
And so that's why they need to have a boogeyman, so they could keep making bombs and blowing them up. And that's what Russia's there for. And if Russia wasn't there, they just invent them. They invented Al Qaeda. Hillary Clinton's on video admitting they invented Al Qaeda out of the Mujahideen.
Liberals know it. Liberals know that.
ISIS,
they know that and they dismiss it.
And they just dismiss it. So we invented Saddam Hussein. We armed him for years and years until same thing with Libya. All of a sudden, so whenever they need a boogeyman, they create it, whether it's Kim Jong-un, whether it's Saddam Hussein, whether it's Muammar Gaddafi, whether it's Bashar al-Assad, whether it's Putin. They invent a bad guy so to keep the military-industrial complex going. And let's remember that these wars are not meant to be won. They're meant to be ongoing, because there was already a peace deal for Ukraine. Immediately, a month after the war started, they was going to be over. And guess who stopped it? The United States and NATO. That's who stopped it.
Jimmy, they invented gangster rap. The CIA invented gangster rap. Some agent just died. Take his deathbed confession. Obviously they did, on purpose, just like they invented the hippies. Everything that people like, oh, I hate anti-war protesters now. They smell and they do drugs a lot.
Yeah.
That's not how they started.
That's
that was
right.
the CIA. That's the point. That's the point of that's why there is no left.
That's
which
right.
I used to not think is real, but Barry, you're right. Barry's right. There isn't.
There is no left.
They made sure of it.
So I just can't wait for the day when I don't think it's ever coming. People just like to repeat, hey, there is a uniparty, and somehow Trump is a little bit outside it. Just like Elon Musk is a billionaire and a defense contractor, and he stepped out of line just a little bit by allowing a little bit more free speech on Twitter than any other social media app. And look how they came down on him. They call him a racist. They call him alt-right. They call him a misogynist. All the things they said about Bernie Sanders. They're saying about, so you can't, even if you're a billionaire in bed with the military industrial complex, you still cannot step out of line even a little bit. And so Donald Trump has stepped out of line a little bit. He wouldn't do war the way he wanted because he's New York real estate corrupt. He's not deep state. I want to kill 1 million people and order a torture program corrupt to make some money for our friends. That's the difference. Okay. So there it is. That's and now there's a new whistleblower. So you got to be naive in the extreme to think that that somehow Bobby Kennedy's running some long con. He decided at the end of his life when he's 70 years old to try to grab power by lying. And if he was going to lie, why wouldn't he lie about Israel, Palestine? Why wouldn't he just pretend? Yeah, I'm on board with Palestine. Why wouldn't he do that? He's the guy.
A lot of rich people.
The guy, I was totally against him on Israel Palestine. I've done a whole hour show debunking his Israel Palestine stuff. But what I'm saying is, when he talks, he's sincere about things. And
the lockdowns and that poison that they fucking put in like my nieces and other people's kids. That's the turbo cancer we learned of from that guest when it ruined my week for the whole week after hearing about it. I'm not over that. I don't care if Trump has said a mean no about eating kitties and doggies. I'm still mad about the Mengele experiment. I'm really upset about it, actually. I don't understand.
I am too. I can't get over it.
Stupid cannot still, because you're loaded and you having to stay home.
Yeah.
It was great. You finally got to take some time away from thinking about your fucking career all day, like the craven cowards these people are. And it was refreshing for them. Other people lost everything they had and they're a little salty about it. And they don't have the empathy for the illegals that they're bum rushing into the country on purpose to screw them further.
Hey, come see us on tour.
Staggering 70%, and gold has increased by 60%.
Of assassination. I think one of the earliest examples was in 1996 when Israel used a cell phone to take out a Hamas bomb maker known as the Engineer. They were able to use a variety of techniques to get the cell phone in his hand, and when it rang and he answered it, Israeli operatives were able to ascertain that he alone was on the phone, and then they detonated the explosives that blew off his head, but only he died. And Israel has used similar tactics to take out individuals. You know, the legality of targeted assassinations up to, states. We know in the United States, the president of the United States apparently can kill anybody he wants to without due process, and the Israelis believe the same thing. But that's one thing. What occurred in Lebanon was something completely different. This is where Israel infected society with devices that society is conditioned to bring in as part of normal everyday operations, pagers, handheld radio, walkie-talkies, etc., and then detonated them at the same time in an indiscriminate fashion. They had no idea who was on the receiving end. They could make assumptions that because these were procured by a Hezbollah procurement agent for the purpose of enabling communication between political and military components of Hezbollah, that there's a good chance a Hezbollah operative would be on it. It's not guaranteed. What if the device was on the counter and the wife heard it and picked it up? What if a child picked it up? What if the husband had it on his hip next to the child? This is indiscriminate act of terror. That's what it is. It's a war crime in the extreme. No American CIA director would ever approve an operation like this. No American president would sign off on this. Nobody in the United States would touch this because it is, by definition, an act of terror, a war crime.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights is in full agreement with you, Scott. Cut number 8.
It is a war crime to commit violence intended to spread terror among civilians. I call again for an independent, thorough, and transparent investigation into the circumstances of these explosions. Those who ordered and carried out these attacks must be held to account.
Did Netanyahu order these attacks? Could this possibly have been done without his consent?
No, the way the Israeli national security hierarchy works is that this would have to have been signed off by the prime minister and I believe at least 2 other people in his war cabinet or in his cabinet. This is not something that the prime minister alone can authorize. It has to be done with, I believe, at least 3 people in the chain of command. It cannot be done without their approval. So this is something that Benjamin Netanyahu signed off on.
And was it likely done by Mossad or the IDF? And if by Mossad, is this intended to prod a reluctant IDF into entering Lebanon militarily?
Well, I believe that Mossad worked together with a unit in the IDF called 8200. That's the Israeli NSA, National Security Agency. They're cyber warfare people. They're electronic warfare people. they have specific capabilities in this area. But this isn't just about modifying a pager or a walkie-talkie. This was an intelligence operation that was years in the making, that probably cost millions, many millions of dollars. It required the near totality of Mossad's operational capabilities to set up a front company covertly in Europe to manufacture and then get into the supply chain, commercial electronic products that are viable on the commercial market. Remember, they had to convince a Hezbollah procurement officer that they had the product and it was safe to do. So this took years, many years to plan. And so it was a capability, I believe, that Israel was holding in reserve for a war with Hezbollah. This is a one-time use deal. You get to do this one time, you don't get to replicate it. They used it and then they didn't follow through. So I think that this was designed not to prod a reluctant IDF. This was designed for political cover. The Benjamin Netanyahu panicked, knew that he couldn't go full-scale war with Hezbollah, and so Mossad did this so that Benjamin Netanyahu could say, "Hey, look, it was great headlines in Israel." I mean, Netanyahu got all, hey, way to take it to Hezbollah, and now they provoke Hezbollah to carry out. The idea was for Hezbollah to carry out retaliation that would justify Israeli response. But Hezbollah's been smart so far. They actually lured Israel into a trap because, I mean, I'll deviate just for a second. Once again, Benjamin Netanyahu let his mouth get in the way of reality. The condition for victory here, as set by Netanyahu, isn't about punishing Hezbollah. It's about returning the settlers to the north. This is Operation Let's Get the Settlers Back to the North. They will never return to the north now. Hezbollah just said that. We will make your life a living hell. You will not get a good night's sleep. Not only will the settlers never return north, we're going to force you to evacuate even more territory. And the people of Haifa are going to spend their next lives in a basement. This is a strategic defeat for Israel.
So Alistair Crook agrees entirely with everything that you've said. He is of the view that Hezbollah actually became aware of these devices minutes before they were exploded, and the Israelis became aware that Hezbollah became aware that they didn't intend to explode them when they did. It was going to be part of a planned operation, but they figured, as you just said, you have one shot with this, we might as well do it now. They didn't care if these people were in hospital emergency rooms or universities or mosques or where they might be with their children in schools. They didn't care where they were when these devices went off. And
well, Israel's never cared. Remember, the Dahiwa principle, the doctrine, is named after a suburb of Beirut that the Israelis leveled in 2006 because they wanted the civilians to be held accountable for the actions of it. That's a war crime, a literal war crime. They said, we're targeting civilians just to punish them, collective punishment. Israel is a war criminal. It's a nation of war criminals governed by war criminals who operate on doctrine which is openly in violation of international humanitarian law, the laws of war. And so there's no surprise that Israel implemented tactics like Operation Explosive Pager, which are an act of terrorism. The Israelis don't care. This is a nation that's committing ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people that's been recognized by both the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. Do you think they're going to pause and go, well, gosh, we better not do this because some Lebanese civilians might get hurt? They don't care. They view all civilians as combatants, and they view all non-Israelis as animals.
Here's Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. Much of this will aggravate you. Much of it is utterly disproven lies, but here he is on a roll. Cut number 5.
On October 7th, the Hamas terrorist monsters burst into Israel, murdered our people, raped and beheaded our women, burnt babies alive, and took 255 innocent people hostage, including many Americans. A day later, on October 8th, another Iranian terrorist proxy, Hezbollah, attacked Israel completely unprovoked. They fired missiles and rockets into our cities. They made 60,000 Israelis leave their homes along the Lebanon border, becoming refugees in their own land. In the subsequent months, they haven't stopped for a single day attacking us. No country can accept the wanton rocketing of its cities. We can't accept it either. We will take whatever action is necessary to restore security and to bring our people safe back to their homes.
His purported justification for the use, without stating it, of the exploding paging devices.
Yeah, and again, he's set forth conditions for victory that will not be attained. All Hezbollah has to do now is survive and continue firing rockets into the north. They don't have to win. They don't have to conquer Israel. To win this fight, the way Netanyahu has defined it, they just have to keep 60,000 Israelis from returning home, which is the easiest thing in the world to do. You just keep firing rockets. And Israel doesn't have the solution. They proved that in 2006. You can't stop the rockets. So it's a stupid move by Benjamin. But, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but, on October 7th, as if it began there, Israel's been running an open-air concentration camp in Gaza since 1948, the Nakba, when 750,000 Palestinians were purged from their homes. Thousands were murdered by the Israelis who stole their land, stole their villages, and they've been stealing land and villages ever since then. So to pretend that October 7th was in a vacuum, plus he ignores the fact that there's no evidence of rape, there's no evidence beheaded babies, burned babies. He's making all that up. The Israeli press says that, not Scott Ritter, the Israeli press. And he also ignores the fact that the vast majority of people who died that day were killed by the IDF. It's, again, the Israeli press acknowledges. So he's a liar. He's a fabricator, he's a murderer, he's a genocidal maniac. And again, all he did is sell Israel down the river right there, because he set terms of victory, just like he said, to be victorious against Hamas, we will destroy them militarily and politically. You can't kill an ideology. Now he says that we will return 60,000 people to their homes. He never will, because Hezbollah will never stop shelling it until there's a ceasefire in Gaza.
He has apparently canceled his trip to the UN for Friday, and there are rumors that the International Criminal Court will issue indictments before Friday. He must know from his legal advisors that he can be served and arrested at the UN, because that is technically not the United States of America. I don't know how the arresting authorities would get him out of there, but he could be arrested there. You have any insight in any of this?
United Nations would never facilitate the arrest of a leader of a state. They have no authority to do that. The security people that exist there aren't an extension of the International Criminal Court or the International Court of Justice. Plus, the United States would never let it happen. The quickest way to shut down the United Nations were for them to pull a stunt like that. So it's wishful thinking on the part of people that think that that's what the danger is. What happens if on the way home his aircraft suffers a technical issue and they have to divert to an airfield of a nation that does in fact plan on adhering to the Treaty of Rome, and now he can be arrested, and he's too far away from Israel for Israel to protect. It's too much of a risk. He's a war criminal. He's a genocidal maniac. He's a murderer. There will be warrants out for his arrest, and he can't control, the outcome of a technical diversion and an in-flight emergency. And so it's, from the Israeli perspective, it's not worth the risk to have him fly from Israel to the United States, knowing that at some point in time there could be an in-flight emergency that requires him to divert to a country that would in fact arrest him. But if he ever made it to New York, he's as safe as the day is long, because he's the national leader of a United Nations member state.
I guess if he addresses the General Assembly, it'll be mainly empty, or at least silent. Here's more from the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights, cut number 4.
These attacks represent a new development in warfare, where communication tools become weapons, simultaneously exploding across marketplaces, on street corners, and in homes as daily life unfolds. Authorities have reportedly dismantled unexploded devices in universities, banks, and hospitals. This has unleashed widespread fear, panic, and horror among people in Lebanon, already suffering an increasingly volatile situation since October 2023 and crumbling under a severe and long-standing economic crisis. This cannot be the new normal.
So consistent with what you said. They dismantled unexploded devices found in universities, banks, and hospitals.
Well, I'm sure they also have devices that were in homes, in schools, in places of public worship. This is a wanton act of terrorism. And, again, as an American, I don't know why we're not condemning this vociferously. What if a pager had been on board an aircraft and brought down a commercial airline? What if it was an American flagged aircraft? This is crazy.
What if the Russians or the Chinese or the North Koreans or the Iranian government did this? Would Joe Biden and Tony Blinken remain as silent about it as they have over this?
No, we'd be calling it an act of war, not just an act of terrorism, but an act of war. And we'd be seeking international sanctions. We'd be seeking international condemnation. There's no way any nation in the world other than Israel or the United States, but even as bad as we are, we wouldn't do this. Because it's a flagrant violation of international law. It's a war crime. It's an act of terror. We know this. We would never do this. And yet Israel did it, and America's going to let them get away. We'll run cover for them on this one.
Have both sets of negotiations intended to lead to a ceasefire? The ones headed by Amos Hochstein, we all know his background, in Lebanon, and the one headed by Bill Burns, the head of the CIA for Gaza. Have they both been frauds? Is it now recognized that the Israeli government, Prime Minister Netanyahu, never intended for there to be a ceasefire at either ends of these conflagrations, Gaza or Lebanon?
Well, yes, it's actually almost stated Israeli policy. The fraud is more being perpetrated by the United States, where we pretend that we're serious about a ceasefire, but we don't put pressure on Israel that would be required to get Israel to agree to a ceasefire. We know what Netanyahu said. At no time has Netanyahu ever said, I'm willing to do this. He's been, at least this is one area we can say he's been honest and said, no, I'm not doing this. No, those are unacceptable. And so it's not that, he's being fraudulent. The fraud is upon the United States, where we know what the outcome is going to be because we know he won't do it. And we know he'll do everything to sabotage ceasefire, which is he's been doing ongoing. Do you think the pager thing was designed to facilitate a ceasefire or sabotage a ceasefire? Do you think anything Israel's done has been designed to facilitate a ceasefire? No, it's been to further this conflict, because only with the continued existence of this conflict can Netanyahu justify to the Israeli people his continued governance as the prime minister. Otherwise, if there was a ceasefire, he'd be out. He'd probably be in jail. But we know this, and yet we're the ones that continue to pretend. There's the fraud. The fraud is in the Biden administration, which has never been serious about getting a ceasefire. Because if they were serious, you just pick up the phone and you literally make it happen. And you can do that by cutting off funding, by cutting off weapons, munitions. You can do that by being silent in the United Nations for a week. Just tell the United Nations, hey, on Israel, we're going silent. You can do anything you want to do. And watch the General Assembly pass resolutions condemning, watch the Security Council make a move on Israel, because Israel can't do anything without the backing of the United States. And we can make Israel pay the heaviest of prices, but we don't.
Can Israel fight a three-front war in Gaza, in Lebanon, and against the Houthis?
They can, as long as the war is not a war, a full-scale war. Israel can fight a three-front war of managed escalation, of managed attrition, which is what they're doing right now. They're losing, but they can fight that. They have the resources to do this. But if this war was to explode into an all-out conflict with the full capabilities of Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, and now we're seeing the Iraqi pro-Iranian Iraqi militias getting involved. They just fired a couple dozen drones against targets inside Israel, including Haifa. Israel cannot emerge victorious in that in a conventional sense. If Israel wanted to, initiate the Samson option, I guess they could try and nuke their way out of it. But again, that's like the pagers. You get to do it once and then it's over and you're dead. Israel won't survive a nuclear conflict.
Last week when you were on with us, you terrified a lot of people with your intellectual honesty that the U.S. was closer to nuclear war on Saturday, September 14, than at any time in our history, maybe since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Do you still believe that from the perspective of 10 days later?
100%. I'm convinced that at some point in time, the history of what happened last week will be written, and it should scare the living you-know-what out of every American. And I've learned even more since then. I've had a very interesting and frightening conversation with Theodore Postal. He's the MIT scientist, a specialist in ballistic missiles and stuff. I've been familiar with him and working with him since the Gulf War, when he was the first non-military person to acknowledge what all military people knew, that our Patriot missiles weren't shooting down any Scuds. And he's been exposing the lies of the U.S. defense industry since then. But he educated me about some technological advancements in our nuclear weapons, fusing, et cetera, that had an impact on our employment, which causes us to be very forward-leaning in terms of preemptive nuclear conflict. And when you factor that into what was happening, it's even worse than what I was saying. Again, the American people need to wake the hell up. Excuse my language. We almost all died last week. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts on this. Had we gone forward and signed the document that Keir Starmer, not an American, by the way, a British prime minister, acting on the advice of British people, not Americans, who were acting on pressure given to them by Ukrainians, not Americans. There's no American interest here. Had he signed that, it would have set in motion events that, without any doubt, would have led to, through cause and effect escalation, a preemptive nuclear strike by the United States on Russia, not Russia dropping nukes on NATO, a preemptive nuclear strike by the United States, because we can't win or manage conventional escalation using strategic assets. Russia has the advantage there. So the moment we start firing missiles into Russia and they start firing conventional missiles back into Europe, they will have such devastating effect on NATO that the only option the United States will have is to initiate its nuclear employment doctrine. Nuclear preemption, escalate to de-escalate, and then it's all over. 72 minutes, as I said before. It's worse than what I thought it was last week, because our nuclear employment plan, which no American knows about. I just want to remind people in the history of this, when John F. Kennedy was briefed on the first nuclear employment plan after he became president in 1961, he walked out of the Pentagon, he said, and we call ourselves the human race. This is disgusting. You're asking me to murder hundreds of millions of people. I can't do that. You have to give me other options. But the war machine doesn't have any other options. Lyndon Johnson almost got physically ill when he was briefed on it. So too Richard Nixon, who said, this is insanity. What are you talking about? You can't ask me to make a decision that causes hundreds of millions of people to die. Every president's been briefed on this war plan up until George W. Bush said this is crazy. Even Ronald Reagan, who was fighting the evil empire, couldn't do it. He said, I can't do it. That's why we need strategic defense initiative. That's why he went with nuclear disarmament. Only George W. Bush, when the Cold War ended and we suddenly weren't facing mutually assured destruction, said, hey, nuclear preemption could be in our benefit. And then Barack Obama, who said that's bad, he went along with it. Donald Trump doubled down by bringing in a new category of nuclear weapons, and Joe Biden has doubled down by changing our employment doctrine. American people, wake up. We're the bad people in the world here. We're the ones that have a policy of nuclear preemption and an employment plan designed to do that. So as we edge towards a crisis with Russia, stop thinking about the Russians nuking us. We start by nuking them. That's the way it works.
Here's Foreign Minister Lavrov on Saturday, cut number 10.
No one wants nuclear war. We said this time and again. Let me assure you that we have weapons which, if used, will cause grave consequences for the masters of the Ukrainian regime. These weapons are available and on full alert status.
What does that mean, Scott, on full alert status?
It means they're ready to fire right now. And they're not nuclear. That's the point I'm trying to make here. The weapons that Russia would use against Ukraine in a situation where they have made the decision to take the government of Ukraine out, to take Kiev, the government sector out, are non-nuclear in nature. They're strategic weapons. That's called the avant-garde. It's a hypersonic warhead that's loaded on to strategic missiles, old SS-19s, the Sarmat, the new heavy missile, the Yars mobile missile. They all have regiments that are equipped with conventionally armed avant-gardes. These will hit at 26 impact on the ground at 26 times the speed of sound. That's the equivalent of 26-ton bomb. All right, we've seen what happens when a 1.5-ton or a 3-ton bomb goes off. This will be a 26-ton bomb coming in hypersonic speed. It will take out entire blocks. And all Russia has to do is sprinkle Kiev with a half dozen of them, and the city ceases to exist. Remind you, they can also do that to Brussels, to NATO headquarters. They can do that to the British. They can do that to anybody. These aren't nuclear weapons. And when they do this, the impact will be so devastating, it'll have a nuclear-like impact on the psychology of the West. And there's the danger. And this is where I would, if I were advising Lavrov, say, I understand your capabilities and I understand what you can do, but you need to understand what that would trigger. And I do think he knows what it would trigger, which is why he keeps saying, we don't want to do this. We don't want this escalation.
Can those Russian hypersonics reach the east coast of the United States?
They can reach anywhere in the United States. They can reach the East Coast, the West Coast. They can hit anywhere. And what they hit goes away. And there's no defense against them. None. Again, American people, we've spent over $1 trillion building a ballistic missile defense system that doesn't work. It never will work. That's why we signed the 1972 anti-ballistic missile treaty, because back then we realized this was stupid. If you build a missile defense, they will build a missile to defeat your missile defense. And as you keep going, you will always be behind the power curve. The missile will always beat the missile defense. So why not just sign a treaty that says, let's not have missile defenses. Therefore, since we're defenseless, let's not go to war, mutually assured destruction. And since that's insanity, let's embark on arms control that reduces nuclear weapons, not increases them. And maybe we don't have to worry about any of this stuff. No, we're not doing that anymore. We have no more arms control. We're building missile defenses, and the Russians have built missiles that can defeat our missile defenses. And if we go to war, it's going to be very ugly, very quick.
Scott, what are you doing Saturday, September 28th?
I'm going to participate in a rally that you're going to be participating in too. A rally designed to, again, reinforce, from my perspective, what I consider to be the most existential threat to America today, and that's the threat of nuclear war. Again, we almost died last weekend. We're very close to death now because Biden still thinks he can sign that piece of paper and get away with it because people are whispering in his ear, they're bluffing, they're bluffing. Did you see bluff in Lavrov's eyes when he showed you that clip, when the judge showed you that clip? There's no bluff in those eyes. The Russians know damn well what's going on. And so I'm going to be participating in a rally for peace, the Peace and Freedom Rally. And we're going to be talking about a number of things. I'll be focused on how to prevent a nuclear war. Judge Andrew Napolitano, the judge, is going to be there talking about the assault on free speech. And that's one, again, the U.S. government's trying to shut me down. The FBI came to my home to try and intimidate me, silly FBI, to try and keep me from speaking out. It didn't work, but it does work. There's a chilling effect on Americans who now are afraid to speak out because we've weaponized the courts in a frontal assault on free speech. And the judge is going to be talking about that. Gerald Celente, a wonderful man, he's going to be talking about the peace movement and democracy. Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil, who I believe all of you know because they're frequent guests, they'll be talking about the Middle East, about Gaza, about that issue. And we'll have a special guest appearance by Roger Waters, who will be talking about peace, preventing nuclear war, and providing some original music because we don't want to depress the crowd too much. There will be some entertainment interspersed so that everybody doesn't go home suicidal. But the goal here is to have a physical rally, get as many people as possible into Kingston, but we're also going to be streaming it live. It's going to be streamed on multiple platforms. I believe we're working with the Judging Freedom podcast so that it's streamed to the Judging Freedom audience. I know that my podcast is going to do the same thing. We're going to get the Gray Zone to do it. Plus, Gerald's going to be doing it on his. If you want to see it, you're going to see it. This week, I think I have my final coordinating meeting with Gerald today, and we're going to be going on an advertising blitz that's going to be putting out poster after poster, flyer after flyer to tell you where to go if you want to physically be there, or where to go if you want to be there. If you're too far away, but watch it online.
Nasrallah! Inna Nasrallah! Inna Nasrallah! Hey! Nasrallah! Nasrallah! Inna Nasrallah!
The footage allegedly filmed by an Israeli settler after the counter-offensive by the Lebanese resistance forces provides a striking snapshot of the current situation in northern occupied Palestine. In this unverified video, a man can be seen shouting the name of Hassan Nasrallah with palpable rage, pointing out the destruction caused by the missile barrage in what appears to be a residential area in an undisclosed location in Israel. This outcry of frustration from a settler, someone who likely trusted the Iron Dome to protect them, is a rare glimpse into the growing sense of insecurity among Israeli civilians. It's as if the overconfidence in military technology has begun to crack, much like the illusion of invulnerability that Israel has cultivated for decades through its superior firepower. Despite efforts to suppress our voices, we remain committed to delivering truthful, fact-based news and analysis from Lebanon and Gaza. Your support is crucial in ensuring independent journalism thrives. Please like and share this content with those around you, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. For years, the Israeli population has been shielded from the realities of war by their government's military dominance and defense systems. However, the missile barrage from the Lebanese resistance has shaken that sense of security. The Iron Dome, while effective, is not invincible, and the footage shared by civilians reflects a rare moment of vulnerability. Israeli settlers, often insulated from the consequences of their government's policies, are now beginning to feel the direct impact of the ongoing conflict. The cry of anger and frustration from this unnamed settler is a microcosm of a broader sentiment spreading across Israel. The political class's aggression and belligerence have not made the country safer. Rather, it has made it more insecure. While the Israeli government has been quick to downplay the extent of the damage caused by the missile strikes, independent footage taken by civilians paints a different picture. In the past, Israel has been known to obscure the number of casualties or the extent of damage to its infrastructure following such attacks. Yet this time, the devastation was too widespread to ignore. Residents who had long celebrated Israel's military prowess and the devastation inflicted on Lebanon now find themselves on the receiving end, capturing moments of destruction on their own streets. The frustration is palpable, not just in the video, but in the very air of Israel, as the realization dawns on many that their government's policies of aggression are backfiring.
Jangan lupa aku. Wow.
هي هون بالكنايسي ضربوا الكنايسي يا شباب. بعض عم تضرب.
These are footages coming out Lebanon right now. Israel has escalated its own military actions, unleashing a series of devastating strikes across Lebanon. In today's bombings alone, over 100 civilians have reportedly been killed, with the majority being women, children, and medical personnel. Another 400 people have been wounded. The pattern is all too familiar. Much like the operations in Gaza, Israel justifies these strikes by claiming that civilian areas, hospitals, and key roads are being used for military purposes. Yet just like in Gaza, these claims are rarely substantiated with concrete evidence. Instead, they serve as a pretext for the continued targeting of civilian infrastructure in Lebanon. The parallels to Israel's actions in Gaza are undeniable. The same excuses are being recycled, with Israeli officials insisting that civilian homes are being used to store missiles, but no evidence is ever presented to support these claims. This lack of transparency raises serious questions about the true motives behind these bombings. Is this really about eliminating military targets? Or is it about sowing fear and chaos among the Lebanese population as part of a broader strategy to destabilize the region? The scenes coming out of Lebanon today suggest the latter. Messages were sent to civilians warning them to leave homes allegedly used to store missiles, yet no proof has been provided to back up these warnings. The brutal reality is that the bombings seem more like a way to terrorize civilians than to dismantle any legitimate military threat. This recent video released by the Lebanese resistance offers further insight into this dynamic. The footage shows missile launches being conducted in dense forest areas, far from civilian homes. This directly contradicts Israel's narrative that missiles are being stored and launched from residential buildings. In fact, Israel itself released an animated video supposedly demonstrating missiles hidden in buildings across Lebanon.
חיזבאללה מאחסן טילי אישיות, רקטות, משגרים וכלי טיס בלתי מאוישים בתוך בתים אזרחיים בחסות האוכלוסייה הלבנונית מחבלי חיזבאללה, אשר מסתירים טיל שיוט בבית אזרחי לגמרי, בו הם מייצרים פתח מיוחד, ייעודי, לשיגור הטיל.
But this animation bears an eerie resemblance to past propaganda used to justify strikes on civilian infrastructure. One notable example is the bombing of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, where Israel claimed an extensive underground tunnel network was being operated by militants. The hospital was obliterated despite international outcry, based on nothing more than a speculative animation. Benjamin Netanyahu's government seems to be following the same playbook, aiming to manipulate public perception and justify war. Netanyahu appears determined to drag the region into a broader conflict as he faces growing political pressure at home. By escalating tensions with Lebanon, he hopes to rally nationalist sentiment and distract from his domestic woes. But in doing so, he is not just risking the lives of Israelis and Lebanese civilians, he is toying with the future of the entire region. The ongoing strikes and counterstrikes are creating a dangerous spiral of violence that could easily escalate into a full-blown regional war.
We're on deck in the middle of the night. Marines are still out here. These exercises are hoping to be a show of force in the region. We're told that Marines and sailors on board this ship can have the mission up and running in just 6 hours. And the goal is that that presence can prevent a wider war.
Meanwhile, the deployment of US military forces in the Middle East plays a critical role in emboldening Israel's actions in both Gaza and Lebanon, fostering a sense of impunity that allows Israel to continue its military offensives with little regard for international law or human rights. This US presence, aimed at protecting Israeli interests under the guise of regional security, effectively shields the Israeli government from accountability, encouraging the very actions that many in the international community decry as war crimes. For months, the United States has maintained a significant military presence in the Middle East, with upwards of 40,000 troops, a fleet of warships, and multiple Air Force fighter jet squadrons stationed throughout the region. Initially, this troop deployment was part of the US Central Command's standard operations, but it has grown as the conflict between Israel and Palestinian forces in Gaza intensified. The US intervention goes beyond simply defending its own personnel or regional stability. It acts as a bulwark for Israeli military actions, which have drawn international condemnation for the high civilian toll and the indiscriminate bombing of densely populated areas. A key element in this dynamic is the relationship between US military support and Israeli military operations. The sheer scale of American military hardware stationed in the region, 2 aircraft carriers, warships, fighter jets, and tens of thousands of troops, sends a clear message. The US is not a passive bystander, but an active participant, offering logistical and diplomatic backing that allows Israel to continue its military campaigns without fear of significant reprisal. This is most evident in Israel's operations in Gaza, where the blockade and bombing campaigns have led to significant civilian casualties. Yet, the US has vetoed numerous attempts at the United Nations to hold Israel accountable. As Israel's bombardment of Gaza continues, a parallel conflict has erupted on its northern front with the Lebanese resistance forces. Despite growing fears that the violence could escalate into a full-blown regional war, the US response has been to further entrench its military assets in the area. Recent reports indicate that nearly 50,000 US forces were deployed when tensions between Israel and Lebanon spiked, with additional aircraft carriers and warships moving into the region. The purpose of this increased military presence is clear: to act as a deterrent against any regional actors, particularly Iran, that might seek to intervene in defense of Lebanon or Gaza. The US military buildup in the region has far-reaching consequences. By positioning itself so closely to Israeli operations, the United States is not only providing Israel with physical protection, but also diplomatic cover. Any country that might otherwise intervene, whether through military or political means, faces the reality of US military power backing Israel. This creates an environment in which Israel feels empowered to continue its aggressive tactics, knowing full well that any international efforts to hold it accountable will be met with resistance, if not outright opposition, from the US. This dynamic of impunity is especially evident in Israel's ongoing operations in Gaza. The blockade, now in its 16th year, has devastated the lives of millions of Palestinians, and the airstrikes on hospitals, schools, and residential areas have drawn international outcry. Yet, the US has consistently blocked attempts to investigate these actions as potential war crimes. When Israel bombed Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, killing dozens, the US not only refrained from condemning the attack, but justified it on the grounds of Israeli claims that Hamas had been using the hospital as a base of operations claims that were widely disputed and unverified. The same pattern is now unfolding in Lebanon, where Israeli strikes have targeted civilian areas under the pretext that resistance forces are hiding among the population. Much like in Gaza, the lack of clear evidence to substantiate these claims does little to deter Israel, which continues to carry out airstrikes that kill civilians. Once again, the US is standing by, providing diplomatic protection and military support, effectively enabling these actions. The broader consequence of US involvement is the normalization of Israel's use of overwhelming military force against largely civilian populations, whether in Gaza or Lebanon. Israel's reliance on the US to shield it from international criticism has allowed it to engage in what many human rights organizations have called collective punishment, a practice prohibited under international law. Yet, with US military and diplomatic power behind it, Israel faces little pressure to change its tactics. One of the most troubling aspects of US involvement is that it undermines efforts to hold Israel accountable for its actions. The presence of US forces in the region, coupled with its unwavering diplomatic support, stifles the ability of international organizations, like the United Nations, to investigate and prosecute potential war crimes committed by Israel. This creates a cycle of violence in which Israel can act with impunity, knowing that the US will back its claims of self-defense, no matter how disproportionate the response may be. At the heart of this issue is the broader geopolitical strategy of the United States in the Middle East. The US has long seen Israel as a crucial ally in a region where its interests are increasingly being challenged by powers like Iran. By maintaining such a large military presence and backing Israel's military campaigns, the US is essentially asserting its dominance in the region, sending a message that it will protect Israel at any cost, even if that means turning a blind eye to potential war crimes.
Cool, Phil. Follow me.